I had a dog, a pit bull, Kobe. He died at age 8, which is still a young dog, or died of stomach cancer. That wasn't the immediate catalyst behind Perpetual. That was back in 2016, but that opened my eyes to like how reactive and how broken the care system was, because one day we were playing frisbee on the beach. The next day he's not eating, he's lethargic. We take him in, they run the test, stomach cancer, and then a month later he passes away. So that was an eye-opening experience, but it wasn't like, John, you have to go save dogs. There was a moment after that where when you lose a dog because 100% of their health and their care is in your control, you have a lot of guilt.
Anyway, when she came here, she was like, we did an awesome I loved having her on. She was incredible. I personally didn't realize how much of a legend she was, like, in the medical field.
Yep.
Because multiple people have come on and had said, like, you had my idol on. I'm like, really? Who? She's like, Dr. Ava Frick. I'm like, oh, cool. So I think she, like, her team had pitched me, or I can't remember how it worked.
Probably that way, yeah.
I didn't know, like, how much of, when people send the emails, you know, as you know, like, there's things I'm like, oh, I've already done that 10 times, or it's like, I'm not really interested in that, or something. Like, I want to be as genuine as I can. And so almost not every person, but a lot of people after her were like, she kind of like pushed open a door for me. Because people were like, if she's on, then
I'm coming on.
Yeah. And that's been pretty cool.
I went to a integrative vet convention with her that she was speaking, and I kind of knew, like,
Pull up just a little bit. There you go.
There we go. I kind of knew who she was.
Do you see that? Hear the difference?
Yeah, I heard the difference. But then I went to the convention, and when she was speaking, and then like I was working the booth with her, and like after she spoke, like all these vets were coming up and just like in awe of her like teachings when it comes to like the minerals and hair tissue testing. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, she's like, she needs a TED talk, because she can talk for days about this stuff. She could do a master class on it.
Yeah, she's incredible. Taylor, are we rolling? We good? Cool. Yeah, she's incredible. Welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. You're from Florida, so up here, you know, we were just talking about how it's been like 40 degrees, dude, in, you know, almost the middle of June. So that kind of sucks, but
I woke up this morning, it was like a winter day for Florida, so it was a nice reprieve for us, because we're from May on, we're 90s and above in humidity, so I enjoy the cooler weather. Honestly, I don't mind it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I personally, I'm the same way. Like, I'm either like all in or all out. I'm like, let it snow or let me bake.
One or the other, no in between.
Yeah, I'm either one side or the other. But we were just talking about Dr. Ava Frick, which you've partnered with and been working on. Why don't you introduce yourself to the people who are listening and give them a little taste of what you got going on?
Of course. So I'm John Crissy. I'm the founder of Perpetual. We are a diagnostic-driven preventative healthcare system. So more focused on not what we do, but kind of why we do. Why we started Perpetual is that obviously the pet healthcare system is broken. It's reactive. It's one size fits all. And it only comes in the equation when there's a problem, and that's a problem. And when it does come to the equation, it's mostly like not healing systems, which Dr. Ava is really focused on, is you got to heal the systems. They're focused on healing or treating symptoms. So there's a good story that she had told me about a young couple. They get married, right? They buy a beautiful cabin on a pristine river. And as a gesture to his wife, he builds her a beautiful flower garden.
Is this a real story?
It's not a real story.
Oh, okay.
But
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So it's maybe, I don't know. She told me it, but we'll figure out. So he builds her this beautiful flower garden. She's out of town, so she's coming back to town, so he wants to surprise her. He brings her out the next morning to show her the flower garden they spent hours building, and all the flowers are dead. So he's like, interesting. Maybe it was the flowers. Let me replant it. He replants it. The flowers are fine for a week, but on that next Saturday, they die again. So he's like, maybe it's just the soil. So let me change out the soil. So he changes out the soil. They're good for another 7 days. On the Saturday again, following Saturday, they're dead again. So like maybe it's just the flowers. They maybe don't grow in this environment. So he changed the soil right. He gets new flowers, puts it back in. Again, the next Saturday, they die. So then he's like, let me just venture upstream a little bit and let me see what's going on. So he travels about 4 to 5 miles upstream, doesn't see anything. He's about to turn around, but before he turns around, he sees smokestacks way in the distance. So he keeps traveling. He gets closer to this. It's a big factory, right? And he sees all these unmarked drums near the river. He sees a couple employees. He flags them down. Two of the employees are like, go get lost. But one of them pulls him aside and says, listen, I shouldn't be telling you this, but every Saturday they've been bringing us in and dumping these drums, we don't know what's in it, into the river. So he goes to find out that what was in those drums were chemicals and the company was saving cost or whatever, dumping it in the river. So every Saturday, those chemicals would travel downstream and kill his flower bed.
Hmm.
So if he didn't travel upstream to find the root cause of it, he would have been changing out his flower bed over and over and over again. And that's sort of what standard veterinarian care is doing, right? We're treating the downstream effects of what's going on instead of getting to the root problem, the factory dumping in the chemicals, right? So that's a big issue that we're focused on, that Dr. Ava is focused on, is let's heal the systems, not the downstream effects, the symptoms. So that's what we're focused on at Perpetual. And it's a lot of why what we're doing, because standard veterinarian care, as you know, the quality of care has dropped. There's a lot of dark vet care. I know you had Dr. Judy on talking about kind of private equity coming into space. So we're trying to provide pet parents with an alternative way to care, a better way to care, one that puts them in the driver's seat of their dog's health.
Hmm. So how did this come about? I mean, I know that there's that story, right? But like, how did how did at what point in time? Like, what's your background? Are we? How did that work? How did it go? You know?
So I had a dog, a pit bull, Kobe. He died at age 8, which is still a young dog, or died of stomach cancer. That wasn't the immediate catalyst behind Perpetual. That was back in 2016, but that opened my eyes to like how reactive and how broken the care system was, because one day we were playing frisbee on the beach. The next day he's not eating, he's lethargic. We take him in, they run the test, stomach cancer, and then a month later he passes away. So that was an eye-opening experience, but it wasn't like, John, you have to go save dogs. There was a moment after that where when you lose a dog because 100% of their health and their care is in your control, you have a lot of guilt, a lot of what if I would have done something sooner? What if I wasn't feeding the kibble? You know, the what ifs kind of roll through your mind. So that was 2016. Around 2019, I got into my like health journey. I met a health guru. Probably sounds crazy, woo-woo, but he was preaching gut health back then, and it was just like a catchphrase. This is, mind you, seven years ago. But I started following his protocols. I saw a huge shift in my mental health and my physical body. So then I was like a sponge with this guy. I was just like, I got to learn everything he knows. So that's when my health journey started. I really got behind gut health. I ended up starting a gut health company called Gut Armor.
So what specific things did you change, and what differences did you see in your mental health specifically?
So first, he had me clean up my diet. You know, I was eating a very processed food diet, high
Sure.
carbohydrate diet. So I took my fiber intake from like 10 grams a day to 30, 40 grams a day. So not many people know when you break down fiber, your bacteria in your gut feed off that, and they produce what are called short chain fatty acids. One of the main ones being called butyrate. So what butyrate does in your gut, and this does for dogs as well. So we're talking both here, is it feeds the cells in your gut called colonylytes. So these cells are like your main repair mechanisms in the gut. So if you have inflammation or a leaky gut, that's what they're in charge of. So butyrate is like, you know, the scene from like Popeye when he eats the spinach.
Hmm.
They eat it. They're like, "Tuk, tuk, tuk."
Yeah.
They're all charged up. So it does a lot of repair, and it reduces inflammation. Then it also creates a oxygen-free environment in the gut, which most of your beneficial bacteria in the gut thrive in an oxygen-free environment. So it helps keep that balance. So the sweet spot is like 85% good bacteria, 15% bad. You need bad bacteria actually. So there's a sweet
Sure.
spot in that balance. So it helps keep that homeostasis within the gut. And then another cool thing about butyrate is it's one of the short chain fatty acids that actually can cross the blood-brain barrier. So they're seeing studies now with in humans with dementia, with it lowering inflammation, lowering the risk of dementia. I know 60 Minutes just came out with an episode about dog dementia. So it's a very interesting compound. So that was, um, I started my diet, then I started taking his supplement, which was a postbiotic that you could get butyrate in that form. And um, I
What
had
did you notice in your
the
mental?
mental health, clarity, less anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety, um, and yeah, just clearer thoughts.
Yeah.
And then when it came to my body composition, I was always a little bit overweight, and it like really leaned me out.
And these are just pills?
These were, yeah, soft pills.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And you noticed a significant difference. And how what was that time frame in which you started to see a difference in your mental health and your body kind of leaning out?
I'd say about 90 days in.
Wow.
Um,
So about 3 months.
3 months of
Wow.
cleaning up the diet, taking the supplements, and then that drove me to start the gut health company called Gut Armor. And then we were one of the first companies with a postbiotic, specifically butyrate in the United States. But I learned a lot from that because it was like, oh, it's a blue ocean, right? We're gonna do so well, but there was a lot of education. So like you're selling and educating at the same time. So it was a very costly to acquire customers because no one heard about a postbiotic, let alone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So what other things did you do prior to that? Like was it just those pills that kind of made you like turn around and go, "Hey, this is life-changing?"
So I would say the pills, but really the fundament foundation is diet, right? And I always preach to people because there's so much when it comes to dogs as well. It's like so much information and noise that you should be taking this supplement or this supplement or doing this. If
Yeah.
the pillar is diet, right? What you put in their bowl controls. If you can get that cleaned up, that makes a world of difference. Like you don't need to over supplement your dog. Yes, here and there, precision supplements, like you know what they're deficient in. Let's
Mhm.
give them that versus like across the board, like any new trend. You're like, let's throw some more supplements in the mix.
Yeah, it's hard too because as a consumer, both obviously as a human being and having dogs my whole life and being in the dog space, I think it's first of all, I believe food is medicine like 100%. I similarly went down a journey of that like less like once you see, you can't unsee.
Yep.
And I almost tell people like if if you start educating yourself about what's in your food, then you can't unsee it. Like all the processed sugars and the reds and the dyes and all the things that are really bad for every part of your body, like your fat, the way that you think, right? Like even with our kids, we have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it's tough, man, because we're kind of like some people would call us like like we're the new age hippies, really, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we went out to dinner the other night with our friends and they had THC seltzers at the restaurant, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because I don't really drink anymore because it affected my mental state of mind so much, like my anxiety, and like it ramped everything up, right? I had a base anxious because of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and then so caffeine, and that's why I drink a lot of mushroom stuff. But anyway, so I asked the waitress, I said, how much sugar is in the seltzers, because that can be kind of deceiving, right? And my buddy looked at me, he's like, what do you why do you he said, "What do you care?" He was genuinely confused. He's like, "Why did you ask that?" I'm like, "'Cause I just don't want a lot of sugar, man. Like it's just really bad for you." And he was like, "Oh, okay." But anyway, so and then even with the kids, it's like we went to a birthday party yesterday, and there was like the goldfish, which my wife had heard this podcast about how bad goldfish is so bad for your. And we have relatives that are dentists too, and they're like, dude, it's like the worst.
Really? Yeah.
It's really bad. And then but then there's cake and there's all these things, and it's just hard because you're like constantly flipping over packages because it's not. And I talk about this a lot in my podcast, but it's like I'm telling you, once you know you can't unknow like what's going on in the food industry because it's so deceiving. Like even the kids next door, we live in a cul-de-sac. The kids next door are eating Takis. It's like bright blue fried, basically Doritos with all these seasoning dusts all over them. Super, like literally negative benefits.
Oh yeah.
Like no nutritional value whatsoever. It's just good tasting, but it just destroys like his hand. Like we were talking, like Will, shout out to him. He's like he's like 7, and he's got bright blue hands like a Smurf. And I'm like, and his mom was like, yeah, imagine what his insides are like. But it's so hard for parents, even pet parents, because with pet parents, we don't like, I don't know, like I'm just doing everything I can. I know like natural is better, right? So what are you what is your goal right now with your company after you started your gut health and you educated yourself and now you kind of have this mission? What is your overall goal with what you're doing with your company now for dogs?
So we want to help dogs live longer, healthier lives and reduce the cost of standard veterinarian care because it's hard, it's expensive. I'm not gonna lie, it's become crazy expensive to care for a dog. So that's an overall goal of ours. Obviously, there's specific areas that we focus on, diet, like we
Mhm.
were just talking about, being one of them. Um, you know, a lot of people talk about raw versus fresh versus baked. There's a lot of information out there, but no one's really talking about precision feeding based off the dog's biology. And Dr. Ava and I talk about this a lot. Like, you could be feeding raw or fresh food, but feeding the wrong type of protein, and it's actually going to do more harm than good. Um, so I always like the analogy of like you got two trucks, right? Same model, same year, same mileage. Each truck has to travel a mile a day. One truck has to travel a mile down a flat road. Next truck has to travel a mile up a hill every day. Which engine do you think is going to burn out first?
The one that's going up the hill, working
Right? Because it
harder.
has to work harder.
Mhm.
So if you're feeding a food that's not biologically in tune with the dog, it has to work harder to break down that food. It has to work harder to absorb that food. It has to work harder to assimilate that food. So it's important to find out your dog's metabolic type, their oxidative rate, so you know what purines to feed, what proteins to feed. Um, and then, because that's such an important part, because longevity, like the saying is death by 1,000 cuts, but longevity is life by 1,000 cares. It's not one single lever that you can pull or one thing that you can do that's gonna be so impactful. It's the day-to-day consistency of doing the right things, taking them out on the walks, feeding the right food, making sure they're getting play and mental stimulation. 1,000 minors equals a major when it comes to longevity. So it's that day-to-day stuff that adds up to maybe additional 3 or 4 years. And that's what we're all looking for, right? Because dogs' lives are short. We're in control of their health. We want to do everything we can to extend that life, not only their lifespan, but their health span, most importantly. So that's really what we're focused on in Perpetual is one, the diet, um, and then also, you know, just educating pet parents on what to feed, and then, minerals. Minerals are everything. They're the life force. They are the foundation of life. Like, you can have the best engine in the world, but they kind of describe minerals as the spark plugs of life. So if you're missing that one $5 spark plug, your engine's not going to start. So really educating people on the importance of minerals, and then the deeper patterns that minerals pinpoint when it comes to body systems and how well they're working.
And what data are you guys using? Because to me, I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but how do you know, right? Because there's so many companies out there that are gonna say things like that,
Yep.
right? And for those of you who are listening, obviously this isn't a sponsored thing. John had just emailed and said, hey, I'm doing this really cool thing to help dogs live healthier, but also to save money long term, blah blah blah. So for me, I would just be hesitant because I would say, okay, if you say dogs need minerals or dogs need these certain things, like what data points do we have or that you have or somebody else has done that you can turn around and say, hey, because I already know like nutrition, because I've had tons of people on talking about nutrition. Like obviously that's big, but like what data points do we have to point towards the different minerals and things that dogs do need that they're likely not getting?
Yeah. So it's called the main diagnostic that we run at Perpetual is called a fur tissue mineral analysis test. Dr. Ava, who is our chief medical advisor, she's been doing this for 30 years. So she literally wrote the book on this. Like, she's the guru. She's dedicated her life learnings to this test. So I like to explain like fur, because people are like, what can I learn about my dog's health when it comes to fur? Remember, as we were kids in like elementary, we would do like a time capsule where you bury a bunch of stuff in
Yeah.
there and then come back 20 years later and like
I think they're still buried some.
they're still buried somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, jeez,
So
for that.
fur is much like that, where it's a 120-day biological time capsule. So when the fur is under the scalp in its growth phase, is exposed to the interstitial fluid. So I like to explain interstitial fluid is like your pantry, right? It's got everything from your healthy stuff to your Oreos to your crappy stuff. So
Right.
your hormones, your vitamins, toxins, like, if, whatever, I don't know what, if you were to smoke THC around your dog, we don't test for that, but it would show up in their hair too. So anything that the dog's exposed to, it's going to show up in that hair shaft. So
Mm.
what happens is when that hair shaft punctures through the skin, all that information gets trapped in the hair shaft. So now you have that 120-day biological time capsule of what was going on previously. So
Oh, that's why they do the drug test through the follicles, because it's a longer, like if they do a urine test, people can kind of fake that, but also it's kind of a timestamp where a follicle is much more
exactly,
longer, right? It
exactly. You got 90
captures
to
it.
120 days that captures it.
Got it.
Um, so over that 120-day period, you're able to look back in the past and then kind of use that. Dr. Ava says like her crystal ball, what's happening in the past, the patterns that are happening in the past, you can then predict the future with that. So fur is actually a more accurate way to go about diagnosing dogs and stuff because blood is very in the moment. It's a snapshot. Unless you're doing blood testing every couple months to get averages, because you could literally take a dog to the vet, do a blood test, take it back 3 hours later after it ate or was exposed to stress. Those blood tests are going to be different. The results is blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, blood operates
Mm.
in a very narrow range. It's always striving for homeostasis. So if there's toxins or something that it doesn't align with, it's going to pull it out. It's like, nope, let me put that in the bones or let me put that in fatty tissue. So if it's showing up in the blood, it's like, okay, this is a major problem at this point. So it's not a good early detective tool, if that makes sense. If it's showing up in blood, it's kind of
Yeah.
like a late detection, like, oh man, this is serious.
It's kind of like just a snapshot,
Exactly.
right?
Because it changes. Like
Yeah.
literally hour to hour, your blood is changing.
Yeah, and that's why that was so interested to have you on, because I am no expert at any of this stuff. I just try to figure it out. I want to feel better. I want to live longer. I want to be happier, and I want to enjoy life on Earth with my friends and family and my kids as the best I can, right? And so I'm doing a little bit of everything, right? And so we did a Dutch test, which is basically a hormone test, right? So they test testosterone, estrogen, a bunch of different things. I can't remember all of them, but you had to basically swab, you had to pee on stuff, you had to
It's
swab.
all three, right? Swab, saliva, urine, blood.
No blood,
No blood.
right, T? We don't do blood, right, for the Dutch? No, we just did urine and saliva, but it's like very, very, very strict. First thing in the morning, they want to test your cortisol. It's like,
Hmm.
boom, you pop in one of those little pillows, right? And I remember I got the test back, and then, dude, it's just so funny because I want to know why I feel the way I feel. Like I'm obsessed with that. I'm like, wait, because once again, with my relationship with coffee and alcohol and stuff, now I'm like, even recently, I start to feel like really lightheaded sometimes. So like, I'll just feel really foggy or out of it in a certain window throughout the day. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, why do is it too much sugar? Is it not enough sugar? Is it not enough protein? Is it sleep? So I'm gonna go crazy on you here a little. I'm gonna go off the deep end here.
What do
But
we got? We got an
I,
Aura ring, a Whoop. What are we
oh,
tracking with?
well, a little bit of both right now. So I got my Oura ring, but then I got a Dexcom. So I'm not diabetic, but I can track my blood sugar now, like as precise as you could without pricking yourself every,
Yep.
So now for people who are listening and not watching, Dexcom is basically like a glucose monitor that is in real time. And so I have an app. The company. So right now it's telling me you can see it's 176 and it's telling me it's slowly rising, and it's because I probably just had my oats, which has sugar in it because it has like maple syrup and stuff. But anyway, so I'm in the weeds with this stuff.
Yep.
And again, like what I do, to be honest, and this company is Stello. It's by Dexcom, I think. And I'm like, I went out the same friends that we went out to dinner with. She's a nurse, and she's like, you do know, because I was telling her, I'm like, look, I'm gonna eat, and then this is gonna happen, right? And she's like, you do know that that's normal. Like your blood sugar goes up, it goes down. Everyone, I go, I know. I said, but what I want to do is when I'm feeling a certain way, I want to be able to look at this thing, and if it tells me like I'm spiked, I'll be like, oh, okay, so it must have been something I ate, because I'm tracking my sleep because it pairs with my aura.
Yep.
Just dope, right? So I'm tracking what I eat, what I drink, even my electrolytes that I put in my water has doesn't have added sugar, but it has, I think, stevia or something. Same thing in my opinion. But anyway, so I'm like really trying to figure this stuff out. So this stuff is so fascinating to me. So anyway, I digress. So the difference between the blood work and the hair follicle is the follicle is much more, it's not just a snapshot. It's a long.
120 days of biological data. So a
Wow.
lot more
Mm.
information that you can tell. And then going back to blood sugar, I actually wore a continuous glucose monitor, the same one that you're wearing because I had it connected to
Cool.
my Aura. And
Sick.
when I do the hair test as well, because you can do it both on humans and dogs, is from that, from the mineral patterns, it said I was in a parasympathetic state. So
Mm.
when you're in a parasympathetic state, you tend to not do as well with certain like carbohydrates. Carbohydrate metabolism is good. And then they also say you have blood sugar dysregulation. This is within the hair. So when I did that and I started eating starchy carbohydrates, it not only spiked through the roof, but it stayed there.
Like
So
what? Like rice,
rice,
bread, or
bread, yeah, white bread, anything with white flour, potatoes. Cool potatoes actually become a resistant starch. We could talk about it later, which
did that come down or did it?
so they would spike, but it would stay up for a while and then would come
How
down.
long is a while? Because I'm new to this. So
Okay,
explain that to me.
so when you eat something, spikes, it should spike for 30 minutes to an hour and come back down. Mine was staying hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
showing I was having some real
Right.
dysregulation.
Right.
So from that, well, from the hair told me, and then that confirmed that I just don't do well with starchy carbohydrates. So if I do eat them, I keep them to a very minimum, and I eat them earlier in the day because the last thing you want to do is eat, for me, starchy carbohydrates
Yeah.
late at night because I get that blood sugar spike and I'm not going to bed.
And what did you feel the difference? Like when you ate these things, I know you can look at your monitor and go, "Oh, because that's the thing for me is, and I've been reading, and the cool thing is with now these large language models and things like ChatGPT and Claude is, I was listening to a podcast the other day where somebody literally like he was a doctor and he got sick and he used chat to diagnose everything and he's like, dude, it was spot on. Like he was like, this is how I feel, this is what I look like, this is, all these things, and he's like, I like this thing was spot on. So anyway, I put it in the chat and what chat was saying is like it's normal for it to go up, but then it should go back down.
Should come back down, yeah.
Mm.
If it's staying spiked, then you definitely had some blood sugar dysregulation. And then obviously, where's your baseline at?
Yeah.
Mine was like 117, so it's
Yeah.
20 was on the higher end. But back to your question, I definitely felt it when it spiked. It was almost I don't do good with caffeine, and when I drink like espresso or something, I get like two
Oh yeah, dude.
like that. So that's kind of the feeling I was feeling when I would eat these carbohydrates. I'd be like kind of like, what's going on? And then I would feel off for a while, and then it
Yep.
came back down. So yeah, it exactly tracked as it spiked. I started feeling kind of a little wired and like there's something going on with my body. And then when it came back
Yeah.
down, it
Yeah.
normalized.
See, that's the same thing for me, and that's what I'm just looking for answers.
Yeah.
And now with technology and things that you can do is like it's amazing what you can find. So many people, even listening and watching this podcast, probably suffer from little changes that they could be making, and with their dogs too. And that's what I've realized is dogs. Some people come on the podcast and say that dogs are ahead. The medication and the biometrics are ahead. I think they're behind just because like dogs don't have Oura rings, dogs don't have glucose meters, dogs can't go into ChatGPT, dogs can't look at you and go, I feel like shit today.
Mhm.
Why? What did I eat? What did I not eat? So can I ask you this? Are you just self-taught? Is your background just like diving into all this stuff because of how you felt and all your
Yeah.
research?
So disclaimer, I'm not a veterinarian or medical professional or licensed in anything. I'm self-taught. I'm a business major, but I just fascinated with health and wellness, specifically like longevity, because like you said, I want to live the longest, healthiest life. I want to be around. I don't have kids yet, but I do want kids.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be around for them. I want to be around for my grandkids and maybe my grandkids. So my obsession with living and my zest for life really drove me down the rabbit hole, and it's just such a fascinating topic because I've become enamored with other topics, but you learn it like, okay, I know it. With this, it's like the more I know, the less I know. So that's kind of the game with when it comes to health and wellness is it's just like never ending. So it's kind of a life's journey and a life's learnings.
Yeah, yeah, and it's overwhelming too. So with the dogs, the snapshot is 120 days, and so and I remember Dr. Ava when she came over to my house. I don't know if she told you, but she buzzed one of my dogs. She
Yeah.
like it was funny. It was like a like a Halloween movie where they need like hair of a werewolf or something. She
Uh-huh.
like buzzed one of my dogs and took the hair with her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this and do that," and I'm like, "Okay." And she told me like because I've been talking about like blood work and even FMTs, right, the fecal matter transplants, and she's like, "This is so much like more in depth." And so tell me what you guys are reading in these tests. So just to give people context, essentially it's exactly how it sounds. You shave your dog or cut the hair, send it in. You guys run this test. How are you guys? Are you sending it out to a third party? And then how are you validating these things? And how does that process work on your end?
So how it works, we have a collection kit. You order it, you become a perpetual member. So it's a membership. You get 3 tests per year. So we test every 120 days. The reason behind that is there's a major shift in dogs' biology every 120 days. So by testing every 120 days, you get rid of any blind spots or gaps in coverage. So if there's something happening, you're going to catch it very early on in the cycle. And that's the key, right? Is catching things early before they become major and costly issues. So you get the membership, the test gets sent to your house. Within the collection kit are medical grade stainless steel scissors. So it's important that you use those medical grade scissors, because if you use household scissors, you could contaminate the
Right, there's things
fur
on
sample.
them,
The shards of aluminum get in there, or there's like your
raw food.
kid's home project, you were cutting through
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So you would take the fur sample, and it's about a quarter size, so it's very small. And it comes in the kit comes with a little paper scale. So you kind of put it down, and once you put the fur on the scale, when it tips over and hits the surface, you know you collected enough.
That's
So it's a
cool.
little redneck ingenuity
That's cool.
with that. So then you would drop the fur sample off at a FedEx or Walgreens location, ships to the third party lab, and then about once it reaches lab, 48 hours later, you get all your results on the mobile app.
Wow, 48 hours?
Yeah, quick turnaround time.
Dang. Good for you.
And going to speaking about all this input, right? We love our data, but it's a lot. It's a lot. So we were very focused on not only providing the users with great input data, but also a great output solution-based experience. Because I've done function health, I've done a lot of blood tests. You get all these biomarkers, and you're like, "What does this mean?" And I'm in ChatGPT, like just like all night, like
Yeah.
on Chat. So we were very focused on providing a user experience that breaks this information down and makes it super easy to digest, and super easy to take action. That's the key. Is like, yes, I got all this great information, but what do I do with it? So we're very focused when we built the app. Is like, this is easy to explain, easy to understand, and here's a step-by-step approach: what you should do with your dog's diet, what systems are in need, and then how to support those systems.
Really? So you're sending it off to a lab. The lab is doing the diagnostic for you, giving it back to you, and then you put it into the portal. And
So
then
exactly, the data. So we have specific ranges. Dr. Ava's been doing this for 30 years, so it's kind of like proprietary to her, these ranges, because she's done a peer-reviewed study with 564 dogs, and then over thousands of dogs over these 30 years. So she's created these ranges that these certain minerals should be in. So that information, the analyte specific mineral markers, are then sent through the lab's API into our mobile app, and then we take that information and then we create body system scores for your dog. So you'll know your dog's thyroid, how well it's functioning, their kidneys, their liver, their heart, etc. It's very easy to
wow.
understand that way.
Wow. And so what are you finding with most dogs? Because obviously to me, this is new. To people listening, this is probably going to be new.
Yep.
Like I kind of knew about it because I had Dr. Ava on and she was in my house buzzing my dogs around the house and like, adjusting them and stuff. She's a riot. But what are you guys finding? Like what's the
So there's a lot. So let's focus on one area: is heavy metals, right? So when it comes to mercury, arsenic, aluminum, there was a organization called the Environmental Working Group, and they had a project called Skin Deep. They did a pilot with dogs, and what came back is like they found dogs had 10 times the amount of mercury than humans do. And we were seeing that, and Dr. Ava is seeing that, is elevated levels of mercury and aluminum in dogs. That was just a big problem because
yeah.
aluminum, neurological issues. They're protagonists against certain minerals, so they take up the cellular receptor spots and block, the minerals, certain minerals from getting into the cells. So big cascading effects when you have heavy metals. Um, so that's one thing we're seeing is elevated levels of heavy metal. And you say, why is that? Why would dogs have higher levels of heavy metal than humans? One, they have more surface level exposure. They don't wear clothes. We wear clothes. They're rolling around. They're getting into everything. And on top of that, they're not bathing like we are. And then a lot of dogs, what we're seeing, have stressed livers. So it's a double whammy, right? You got elevated heavy metals, toxins, the liver stress. Those start to accumulate. The liver can't properly detox those, and then cascading effects happen from there. So that's one area that we're finding a lot of issues is elevated heavy metal levels in dogs, which is a big issue that you have to address, and you have to be very careful of how you address it because people are like, oh, just do a detox. Let's give it a chelator or something like that. That's the last thing I want to do because you can actually cause more harm than good. Because if a dog's liver, kidneys, and body systems aren't ready for that detox, if you give it a chelator, it's going to pull all those heavy metals
Mm.
out of the tissues and bones, and then it's going to say, all right, liver or kidney, you got to get rid of this. If it's not functioning properly, then you risk of all these combined heavy metals then being reabsorbed, and it can do a lot of harm that way. So if you're going to do a detox, work with the integrative vet. We're focused on getting the body systems prepped to naturally detox, and that's what Dr. Ava's seen before. If you have elevated heavy metals, mercury, arsenic, you support the liver, you support the kidney, you support the digestive system. The body's going to naturally detox those out without having to do like a heavy detox.
Yeah, and there's probably something to do with the dogs drinking like city water every day, their
Yeah,
their whole life.
their whole life. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were kids, we were probably drinking out of the hose and stuff like that. And obviously, it changed. A lot's changed since we were kids with water quality and
Fluoride.
fluoride and pharmaceuticals and heavy metals are in the water. So I would say, like, when it comes to longevity, the pillars are diet, exercise, sleep, water. Everyone looks over water, like, focus, all right, we're getting the premium food, but we're still giving our dog tap water. So water is one of the biggest levers you can pull when it comes to your dog's health and longevity. And not only filtered water, but adding electrolytes and minerals back into the water, because it's all about intercellular hydration. So you think of a cell, right? It's got a thick lipid layer around it. So it takes a lot for that water to get in there. With those, when it's charged with minerals, when you put minerals or some Himalayan salt, I wouldn't say Himalayan salt because China's gotten to the business of mining Himalayan salt, but there's a couple other salt companies we could recommend. But putting a little pinch of that in your dog's water can help with that intercellular hydration, which makes all the difference in the world. So water is a major longevity hack. Not even a hack. It's just something you need to be doing day in and day out for your dog.
Yeah, last night me and my wife, we do the sauna quite a bit, and once I saw the studies come out about sauna decreasing all rate mortality by like double digits, I was like, "Yep, that sounds good. I want that. What is
Yep.
that? Can I have that?"
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, we've gone through so many different electrolytes. Is there any electrolytes made specifically for dogs, or can you? Because I'm sure there's stuff and flavors and stuff that might not be good for them. Is there any brands that you recommend?
I use a brand called Trace Minerals.
You have heard
Um,
Trace?
Trace Minerals are good. So there's no flavoring, artificial flavoring. It's all natural. It's got a bunch of different minerals. It's actually got, we could talk about this, is lithium. We test for lithium in the fur tissue test,
Mhm.
but they're saying lithium does a big thing for dogs with anxiety and aggression.
Really?
Yeah. And they're seeing that in kids as well, too, specifically kids who are on the spectrum of autism, because there's aggression tied to that. By just adding a little lithium into their supplementation practice, that has decreased that aggression in childs with autism.
Really?
Mhm.
And yeah, because I learned about the electrolytes once really Liquid IV came out and kind of hit the market. Because I think, in my opinion, as again like a layman, Liquid IV was like the first big like push on, salt and the electrolytes, right? And it was like, okay. And then more started coming out and we started doing research. And I was like, okay, well, Liquid IV has quite a bit of sugar in it. And then so we moved to, what did we do after Taylor? What did we do after Liquid IV a lot? No, it wasn't Water Boy. We did what's the one that you drink? Element Tea.
Elementy.
But now I'm on Taylor, what are we on? Yeah, we're on Thorn now. I take a lot of Thorn supplements
Yeah.
because a lot of them are good third party tested, and you can kind of that's a Trace is another company that I've heard really good things about.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go to because I Trace is at our local like healthy store. You can just get that. So you can just get the electrolytes from Trace and mix it in their water.
So they're little droplets. So you can either go to, Whole Foods or a retail store or get it from Amazon. I think it's like $19. It'll last you, 2 to 3 months, and just a couple drops in their water. And actually, I've seen dogs enjoy their water more with it added versus
Mm.
not added. So they've seen a dog who's kind of like doesn't like to drink water.
Yeah.
They're intuitive. I mean, they they know they have to drink it. They're forced to drink it, but they know it's not good for them when it's tap water or hose water.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's kind of like that's their only option. But when I noticed with dogs, my friends' dogs, is when I've added the trace droplets to the water, they actually drink a lot more water. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
hmm
We used to have there was a company that made like little tablets. I can't remember what it was called, but we would get those for our dogs in the summer. And they're just little tablets you drop in, but I can't remember the name of the company. But anyway, trace minerals, that's good. So the lithium in dogs, that's something that's not supposed to be there, but they need. Is that what you're saying?
lithium can be good. Yeah, it's at certain levels, right? And we go back to those ranges. But yeah, dogs with aggression. Now this is more on the human side. It's more studied that adding lithium, a little bit of lithium into the diet, has decreased aggression. So I don't know if it's well studied or even studied at all in dogs. But it is a mineral that has benefits
Hmm.
at certain levels.
Good to know.
hmm
And the third party testing, or not the third party testing, but uh, what am I trying to say? The peer reviewed data stuff that Dr. Ava did. What were those tests done? Do you remember specifically what she did that was peer reviewed?
So she tested 500. Correct me, 564 dogs. I could be wrong by one or two dogs. 564, where she did testing on the four main electrolyte minerals, so calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium. And what she found from that is, so again, going back to the minerals, you're not actually looking at the individual mineral levels themselves. The ratios tell you more about what's happening inside the body. So one of the main things she said, 94% of those dogs were sympathetic, an autonomic sympathetic state, so fight or flight.
Mm,
Dogs are like
dang. How
very
many? What is the percentage?
94% of the dogs.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just is that when you say that, is that overall, or was that just for their marker of uh, being hydrated? If that makes sense.
So that's just overall
That's how they.
the average 94% of the
Wow.
dogs were in that state, which it's not a bad state. It's how dominant they are. If they're parasympathetic and they're more like balanced, but if they're way off the ranges, like the levels are high, that means that dog is firing and wiring, it's running super hot. So when it comes to that, it's very important what you feed. So the last thing you want to be feeding that type of dog is a warming protein, like a lamb or a red meat, because
Hmm.
that's just going to put logs on the fire and make it operate from an even hotter point. It's gonna be all keeled up.
Hmm. I learned a lot about that from Chinese medicine.
Yes, the thermal type, feeding based off your dog's thermal type. So that's another like marker within the test is like looking at those sodium levels, because sodium are indicator of inflammation, and how hot the dog is running. So you look at like a lot of dogs with hot spots. It could be that they're just like they run hot, and then the food is just adding more fuel to the fire. And then hot spots usually come around summertime, right?
Hmm.
As their body temperatures are increase, and you're adding foods that are warming and heating them up. So that goes back to our conversation about precision feeding and why it's so important to feed off the dogs be based on their biology and not just kind of a random quiz that you took on these farmer's dog or Ollie, because they all have the same type of quiz. It's like, oh, this
Hmm.
is personalized to your dog.
Hmm.
It's kind of you actually got to dive into it and actually go out based off real science of what foods and what proteins should be feeding.
Speaking of real science, Andrew Huberman just followed me on Instagram.
Let's go.
That's pretty sweet.
He was actually talking about he was giving his dog testosterone.
His puppy or his old dog?
No, it was an older dog. Obviously, it was neutered. That's a whole nother
Oh yeah,
thing. A
yeah,
whole nother thing. Like coming out now, they're saying actually, neutering or spaying your dog
yeah.
actually increases the risk of certain cancers. Where we're told the opposite
Yep.
when we're younger. So that's a a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the when you're testing, so when your test comes back, you guys are seeing minerals and things like lithium and stuff being elevated and stuff, but you're also able to see what diet is specifically going to be beneficial for that particular dog. Because that's the thing, like with, a company like We Feed Raw, who I partner with, because they ship it right to your door, and other companies, Farmer's Dog or whatever, Fresh Pet or whatever the heck is out there. When you take their test, it says, okay, this is how active my dog is. This is my age of my dog. This is what they're either lean or they're a little bit overweight. Like those are just basic tests to say this is how much you should be feeding. But they don't necessarily tell you what proteins you should be feeding, right? So how, with your test, you're able to know what particular proteins the dog should be eating versus not?
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's based off purine type, right? You got a high purine, you got moderate purine and low purine. So based off
What's purine? I'm not familiar with that.
purine is just a type of protein, like a purine protein. It's like how much purine is in it, and that will tell you like what lines up with the dog's biology. Like back to my example, if a dog is in a super sympathetic autonomic nervous system, means it's fired up. That dog does well with lower purine proteins and cooling foods, versus a dog who's parasympathetic, which means they're more in a rest and digest. Their thyroid, their endocrine function is kind of sluggish. So those they do better with higher purines and warming foods.
What would be an example of a warming protein?
A warming protein
You said lamb?
would be a lamb or a red meat.
Oh, red meat in general?
Rabbit. Rabbit's very high
Beef
purine.
or
Beef. Yeah. So neutral would be like turkey or chicken. Cooling would be like a whitefish. So
okay.
yeah, we lay all this out in the app, and then also not only the proteins, but like your macros, right? When it comes to fat, a dog who's sympathetic nervous state does better with higher fat content versus the dog that's parasympathetic, because that again that dog who's parasympathetic has a sluggish thyroid, sluggish endocrine system. So the last thing you want to do is overwhelming their body with a high fat content. So they do better with higher protein, lower fat. Sympathetic dogs, high protein, higher fat content. Last thing you want to give a dog who's sympathetic is carbohydrates, high carbohydrates, because those are quick burning fuels. A dog who is in that state, or a fast oxidizer, goes through fuel very quickly. So the last thing you want to do is give it carbohydrates, because it's going to, like we talking about the
Yeah.
spike, right? Their energy is going to spike and it's crash, spike and crash and spike and crash. And that rubber band effect over time causes a lot of health issues.
That's what a lot of like kibble is too, right? It's a lot of carbs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Lots
it's
of
like
like
all carbs.
30% or more, when the diet should be 10 or less
Yeah.
percent in carbohydrates.
And a lot of it is processed too, which help throws food like gas in the fire. You said something about, okay, let me ask you this. I'm trying to process all this, a lot of information. Does the breed have any does the breed have any like lines through it where it's like, okay, these breeds that are from this part of the world, like Asia, like the Shibas or the Akitas, like these breeds are more towards like the cooling meats or whatever, they're cooling proteins. Are you finding that the breeds have similarities in what the dogs need?
So there are similarities, right? Dr. Ava talks about this a lot, and it's a lot in Chinese medicine. It's feeding based off where they're at, like
Because a lot of dogs who are listening to this are going to have mixed breeds.
mixed
That's why I'm
breeds.
asking.
Yeah. So there's that. That's kind of like a good place to start. But there's also like the internal biology, right? And these things shift. Like your dog can go from sympathetic to parasympathetic and in between. Like it's not like a constant. Like my dog's a fast metabolic type. It's that for life. Like it shifts based off certain things and how body systems are functioning, how the endocrine system's functioning. It's a constantly moving state. But yeah, feeding dogs based off like where they were born, that's a great start. But then going even deeper based off their biology and like what it is that dog is in that very moment.
Because I know for behavior and training, like if I get a Malinois and I'm like, okay, this dog's going to want to bite stuff, chase stuff, will do good with like a bite pillow or something like that. Or if I get a husky and I'm like, okay, we got to set our bar here, like what our expectations are, right? So I know that with behavioral, when certain breeds come in, I know what to expect typically. So I didn't know if that was the same thing with your test. Okay, so when you guys, so when a dog owner does this test, right? They send it in. what are the other things? Are you able to detect things like cancer or diseases or anything? Like, I know we want to be proactive. Again, I go to a naturopath doctor. I recently got really into the methylation system and how everything kind of operates, and that whole thing. It's pretty fascinating. So, meaning that you can be a lot of proactive. Like my doctor tells me all the time, like he's able to detect diseases and cancers. He even detected Alzheimer's, or not Alzheimer's, but Parkinson's in himself before he was even diagnosed because of his markers. And that's what he says, because my wife and I have been going there for years, and he's like, if more people did what you guys are doing, there'd be less people sick, there'd be less people dying early, the hospitals wouldn't be as filled, so on and so forth. So when you're being proactive with your dog's health care, what are the other things that you guys are finding in the test that people can either stop or decrease, or even just be or treat, even if they can't stop it?
Well, let's start with cancer, right? We can't directly diagnose cancer, can't make that claim. We don't do that. But we can detect the environment that makes cancer, that is conducive for cancer. Again, back to the kibble, right? High starchy, very high in starch. What does that do? Creates an environment that's very high in glucose, high in blood sugar. What does cancer thrive off of? Fuel for blood sugar. Your glucose is rocket fuel for cancer. So if you have a dog who is constantly in a blood sugar that's constantly high across the board, the likelihood of that dog getting cancer goes through the roof. So we can detect certain environmental things. Again, epigenetics, I've heard you talk about that before, that can be the difference of like reducing the risk, the likelihood of your dog cancer, or increasing it. So cancer we can't detect, but we can detect certain markers that indicate the environment, if the environment's conducive, and if it is, we can give you protocols to lower that environment. Specifically, like what we see through these minerals and their ratios and their patterns is the endocrine system. So all the main body systems, your endocrine system, which consists of your thyroid, your pituitary, and your adrenals, your renal, so that's kidney, gallbladder, digestive system, so how well the dog is processing certain proteins, we could tell,
Mm.
how well their stomach acid, at what level, stomach acid is a very important part. I'd like to go deep into like the 4 levels of digestion at some point.
You could do it
Oh,
right now if you
okay.
want.
We go into it. So, like, when it comes to digestion, like, a lot of people talk about the foods, the
Mhm.
feed, what foods. Back to that truck example I said, like, which one's going to burn out and the body working harder is the first part of digestion is chewing, right? When we chew food, our dogs chew food, they release certain enzymes that then kind of speak to the gut and like, all right, we're breaking down this type of food, whether it be carbohydrates or proteins, gives them the information to prepare the digestion process. So then after the chewing, the food goes into the gut, which then it's broken down by the stomach acid, hydrochloric acid. So just to try this on for size, like hydrochloric acid, if we were to take it out of our gut and pour it in a Coke can, it would burn through it in seconds, then it would burn through this table in seconds. It's that strong. It's just amazing how our body's able to like keep that contained without
Hmm.
affecting it. So after the hydrochloric acid breaks down all these things and puts it into little nutrient particles. So then we have the small intestine. This is where the nutrients
Talk
are.
about dogs or humans or both?
Humans both.
Okay.
Okay, we're on both.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah. We haven't far too far from the track.
Okay.
So on the surface of the small intestine are these things called villi. They're little like tentacle things, right?
Hmm.
And what they do is these floating nutrient particles are all floating around in the gut. They then stick to these villi, and that's what pulls them in to the small intestine, and that's where they're absorbed. So you got the chewing, the digestion, the absorption. So once that food is now absorbed into the bloodstream, at that point it's going to be assimilated. So those nutrients then make it into the cells. So there's a lot of steps there then where things can go wrong. So if you're feeding a dog that's a diet that's not biologically aligned with it, the body's going to have to work a lot harder
Right.
to do that process.
Is that why when a dog eats raw food, when they poop, it's like little owl nuggets versus a processed kibble? They poop out what they take in because the body isn't absorbing it. Is that similar to what you're talking about? The
So
absorption?
so it depends. Like if a dog biologically does well with raw, it'll absorb it, and their poops probably won't be little pellets. It might be like more healthier stools, like fluffier stools.
Mhm.
But raw is very hard to digest. So a dog with a weak digestive system, low hydrochloric acid, I would recommend feeding that dog a lightly cooked because
Mhm.
it's easier to break down and digest. But back to those villi, right? So those things are so important because they pull in all the nutrients. It's not about what you eat, it's about what you absorb.
Right.
So inflammation, when you have high levels of inflammation, most dogs do because of the bad diets and the processed foods. Think of those villi like Brazilian rainforest. We're deforesting, right? We're cutting it down, kind of so that big forest of villi then shrink, and then there's only a little bit of them. So now you have all these floating nutrient particles and only a couple villi to pull them in. So your dog's not absorbing and it's not assimilating the nutrients as much as a dog with a big forest of villi. So that's an important fact, is why reducing the amount of inflammation in a dog's gut is so important when it comes to nutrient absorption and then assimilation. Because most people would think like, oh, if he eats the food, he's going to absorb it, he's going to assimilate it. That's not the case. There's processes and there's an ecosystem and a way that it all needs to work together. And there's an environment that needs to be created
Mhm.
to increase the amount of nutrient absorption and assimilation.
And that's why like liposomal nutrients and vitamins and supplements are important, right? So like I know with I think vitamin D, you also need vitamin K in order for your body to really absorb it.
K2, yep.
Yep, K2. Because I know I was taking vitamin D for a while, and actually my old videographer was like, you know, you need another vitamin in order for that to even matter. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
You're like, damn it, I've wasted all this time.
literally.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So now I take the liposomal, which has everything. Okay. Do those recreate those? This is what
Yeah,
this is what
they
I'm gonna
come
call
back.
them now.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like a lizard tail. You cut it off, it'll grow back
Okay.
if the environment's right. But if you have a high inflammatory environment over a long period of time, actually, it's going to cut down on those villi and have impacts on the overall absorption. So if you're not absorbing nutrients properly, your lifespan, your health span is going to be cut drastically
And that's what you're finding with your tests and stuff, that dogs don't have the ability to absorb what they need to thrive.
through the high inflammatory markers.
And then, okay. And then those high inflammatory markers are predicated off of diet, environment, what they're drinking,
Everything, yeah.
stress.
Stress. I mean, all these inflammatory cytokines are released through diet, through environment. It's like you talked about epigenetics. It's like genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And we control 100% of our dog's environment. So it's on us, right? Clean up the diet, give the good water, make sure they're getting exercise, the right mental stimulation, doing the basics right, day in and day out.
And so with the cancers, you can't detect cancers beforehand or anything, but you can start to detect kind of patterns, it sounds like.
Early patterns that would indicate the likelihood of that happening.
It's going in that direction. What about diseases, like other diseases?
So I don't claim that we can detect diseases, but we could tell where it's going early on, like thyroid disease, autoimmune disease. Going back to the gut, like leaky gut. Not many people are talking about leaky gut when it comes to dogs, but it's relevant. It's definitely an issue because you have a high inflammatory diet. You have a poor nutrients, so you have all this undigested food floating around the gut that's just putrefating, letting off gases.
Yeah.
So what you have in your stomach lining, and your stomach lining gets damaged through inflammation, is you have these things called tight junctions. So they're kind of like this sealed, right? And when it comes to absorbing food, they open up, let the food in to absorb, and then they close. What happens when they're damaged? One of them stays cracked. So now you have the ability for undigested food to pass through, pathogens, different bacteria to pass through and get into the bloodstream. So the immune system is very good at handling this if it's a one-off,
And
right?
that's why they call it leaky gut, right? Because I've had a lot of people on here talking about dysbiosis in many different ways. But for people who are just listening, you put your hands together like this, and then basically if there's a crack in that, because I never understood. Okay, why do they call it leaky gut then? Where's the leak?
Mm-hmm.
That's the leak.
That's the leak
Ah,
in those tight junctions, right? They're healthy, they're sealed, nothing's getting through it,
got it.
but they do open when it's time to absorb food, but they close back up. When you have leaky gut, one of them stays cracked. Now you got a weak spot. It's like a boat sinking. You keep plugging these holes with little corks, but you can't keep up.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the immune system. So when they're like undigested food or a pathogen gets into the bloodstream, if it's a one-off, you have these things called T cells. So T cells tell the immune system who's friend or foe, right? So we get undigested piece of food in the bloodstream. The T cells are like, foe, go get it. So the immune system is very good. It's precise. It's like a sniper, right? It's got a scope on them. done, taken care of them. But what happens when you have leaky gut and you get all this undigested food into the bloodstream, it starts to become overreactive. So it goes from that sniper to a spray and pray. What happens when it's in spray or pray, it starts getting confused and it starts attacking the bad guys and the
Hmm.
good guys. And this manifests in an autoimmune disease. And most autoimmune diseases can be manifested in its physical form in skin issues, hot spots, alopecia, balding. You're licking their paws all the time. So that can all trace back to a leaky gut, and just the overwhelming of the immune system. And then we were talking about the river story
Hmm.
of going back to like the root cause of everything is, what do we do mostly for dogs who have an overactive immune system? We suppress it with
Hmm.
Apoquil.
Hmm.
And most of the times, like if you miss a dosage or something, there's the flare up, which is worse than the thing in the first place, right? The last thing you want to do is suppress the immune system.
Hmm.
That's masking that's masking symptoms. That's not getting to the root cause. The real root cause is like, all right, why is the immune system being overreacted? Is it a leaky gut? Is it something else? That's what I'm talking about. Like Dr. Ava's philosophy is like, heal the systems, not the symptoms, getting to the deeper the root cause, because the last thing we want to do is be shutting down the dog's immune system. And
Yep.
it's not a win. It's
Yep.
definitely not a win. And it's going to cost you because you just keep buying the medicine over and over again.
Well, that's what you were talking about before. It's kind of like ambulance medicine, where it's just it's just chasing the different types of symptoms, symptomatic, right? So I say it a lot in dog training too, where the reason why you've worked, well, two reasons. The two main reasons why dog owners work with 4 to 6 different dog trainers, I see that a lot here, is A, they're terrible students and they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
There's that for sure. And then the other one is people, the other dog trainers and professionals that they're working with, whether it's a behaviorist or a trainer, is they're not focusing on the symptom, or they're focusing only on the symptom and they're not focusing on the reason why it's happening. So that's why it'll pop back up. And part of that is the dog owner's job too, right? So if a dog comes in, they're super reactive on the leash, part of it is helping the dog's nervous system think and calm down with a correction to say, hey, calm down, snap out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we disrupt that behavior because the dog is just peaking, fight or flight, bang, bang. Depending on the breed, it'll look like different things. Then what we do is we audit, now why is this happening? So kind of like you come in, you're bleeding, you don't know why you're bleeding. Let's stop the bleeding. Why are you bleeding? Right? That's the sort of thing. So it's the same thing with dog training. When my goal as a trainer is to always figure out why this is happening. And it's usually 9 times out of 10 the same sequence, right? So a dog comes in and the owner, and this is important for dog owners under any circumstances, because the dog owner is in because of a symptom, right? So whether you have itchy skin, a dog who's reactive on the leash, a dog who, maybe does corn on the cob feet, right? They're chewing all night long, or maybe they're whining or they're anxious, whatever. These are all symptoms, right? And then what I like to do, and it kind of sounds like what your company has developed, is let's figure out the underlying issues of why this is happening. And so again, from a dog training standpoint, a lot of times it's correcting the behavior, stop the bleeding, if you will, stop the symptoms, like stop the chaos. Now let's figure out why this is happening. And for me, I go out to this big training room. The dog isn't as reactive anymore because we've given the dog a consequence for reacting. So there's a little bit of suppression involved just so we can think clearly, right? I can't just sit here and go, "Oh yeah, the dog is anxious." Yeah, no shit, right? But let me have an opportunity to see you work your dog. And then it comes down to the owner, dog heel, boom, dog pulls. Dog heel, dog pulls. Okay, so your dog doesn't know heel. That's like literally the first thing your dog should know is understanding leash pressure in general, or walk nicely. Ask your dog to sit. Sit, 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 sit. I'm like, okay, your dog doesn't know sit. I said, here's the problem. You came in with a reactive dog, but the reason why your dog is reactive is because you have zero communication. You guys love each other, but you guys are not on the same wavelength whatsoever. Oh, what do you mean? I go, your basic skill sets is your ability to communicate with your dog at the most basic fundamental level that you could possibly think of. Asking your dog to put their butt on the ground is like asking your kids to say please and thank you. It's like the most basic thing we teach our dogs. And so for me, it's really easy to detect when a dog comes in super reactive, but the owner literally can't ask their dog to do one single basic thing. Then I start diving into, you need to work on your foundation. And believe it or not, after we start working on that foundation, the heel, the sit, the discipline and the structure and the rewards and all that stuff kind of comes together, the symptom starts going away. So I go, we didn't have to necessarily treat the symptom. The cause of the symptom was the lack of foundation. So it's very similar to what you're talking about. We have a lot of people in here with PhDs and DVMs, and they talk about, look, a lot of the cancers and the diseases and the obesity, the lumps and bumps that we're seeing on 90+% of dogs nowadays is because of the foundation of their exercise, their diet, their environment, their nutrition. So it's very similar to how behavior is kind of paired up, right? It's like, oh, my dog's got this bump. Why? Could we have prevented that? So, okay, so you guys can detect certain types of patterns that could be conducive to potentially seeing like, okay, we need to probably focus on this because this is kind of a recipe for something that we've seen other places like disease, cancers, etc. What are the other benefits of doing your test that other like dog owners who are listening right now, maybe they have a like is there an age like if they have a 6-month-old puppy or an adult dog, is there an age group that you recommend to start with?
So Dr. Ava and I always agree is like longevity starts in the womb.
Okay.
Whatever that mother has is going to be passed on to, the babies. So it's never too early to start. But I would say that sweet spot, but like around 7 is when you start to see major issues in dogs, and it's kind of like the equivalent of like humans, right? At like 70, that's when we start to see
Mhm.
a lot of things start going wrong, like major issues happening in humans.
Adds up.
Adds up, right? You have compounding effects. Eventually, you're pouring your coffee, you look the other way, it's going to spill over, right? And at that point, those are major issues, and at that point, the body systems may be so shut down that it's going to be very hard for that dog to recover. So again, it's all about preventative. It's
Or
starting
that person.
that person.
Shout out to my dad who's eaten potato chips, popcorn, and ice cream his whole life.
It compounds. Yeah, eventually it catches up to
I
you.
get on him on it. I'm like, Dad,
You can't run
drink
away
more
from it.
water.
So yeah, I'd say the earlier the better. But definitely, if your dog's in that 6 to 7 age range, is like that's when you got to really start doing preventative measures and making sure that foundation
But
is
could you
set
do
up.
it earlier?
Oh yeah, you can do it. You can do it right when they're born. You clip the fur, like Dr. Ava has done many puppies, because you want to see what the mother was exposed to. Because if the mother had heavy metals or the mother had certain toxins through the breast milk, is going to be passed on to that puppy. And getting, addressing those issues early and getting rid of those toxins early, or, maybe the dog has a poor endocrine system, supporting that puppy early. Very important, because what you do in your very early ages sets you up for the long, long life.
Yeah. So, okay, so you can pretty much do this at any time, right? So if you have a dog and you're like, because here's the thing I would say is, can you explain the biggest differences between an FMT or even blood work? Because when we say blood work on your dog as a preventative care, that is so foreign. 99.9% of people listening to this, watching this, have not done that. They're not going to do that. Mainly because it's expensive. It's not something that is relatively common for you to do. Again, I go to a naturopath. I suggest other people do that. What that is preventative care. You go to your naturopath, which is going to help you run a blood test and give you all these biomarkers of hey, this is high, this is elevated, let's work on this. It's preventative. So it's similar to you and what you guys are doing, right? So when you're doing the the blood test, which a lot of people aren't going to do, or even the FMT, which I've had multiple people on, and I've done it too for my dogs, which has made a huge difference in the skin in particular, right? Like my dog Burley is a mastiff, and he had leaky gut, he had the skin. I mean, he looked like he had mange, like it was really bad, and that was really helpful for that. So what are the benefits comparable to some of these other things? Because an FMT is pretty simple. You collect poop, you send it in, and boom.
Yeah. So FMT, or that like gut, you're specifically focused on kind of like one area of the body. It's going to give you a lot of information about the gut, the dog's digestion. But I would
Mm.
say the fur that gives you the biggest bang for your buck, because you're able to see what so many body systems and how they're functioning, and catching things early. So I'd say the biggest benefit is for dog owners is like, we're all doing the right things, right? We're feeding the premium food, we're taking them on the long walks, making sure the mental stimulation, all that. But the biggest question is it working? No one knows if it's working. The fur tissue mineral analysis will give you those answers. And I think that's like peace of mind is everything, knowing that what I'm doing for my dog is actually working. And if it's not, very easy to understand what body systems need to be supported. And, again, like I said, we focused on the output and the solution. So instead of like overwhelming someone with like this, that's wrong, right? We focus on the top 3 body systems that need support. We give you exact protocols of how to support those body systems. And you test in 120 days, you start to see will those body systems support. Did they become more optimal? Are they functioning better? And then we move on to the next and the next. And then eventually we're focused on optimization.
What are those 3? Can you explain to me what those 3 are again? If you haven't gone over them, like what are those 3 things you're focusing on right off the rip, like for a new client?
So focus right off the rip is key body systems: endocrine system, renal system, digestive system, immune system, how well the dog's able to metabolize carbohydrates, blood sugar, and then for protocol wise is we're really focused on diet, because diet, a lot of things like with skin issues, like probably with your dog, is once you clean up the diet, lowered the inflammation, gut lining healed, the leaky gut went away, a lot of the skin issues are going to naturally go away. So diet is a huge part of the protocol. Exercise, so we give you specific exercises, specifically daily calories your dog should be burning based off their biology. If a dog's body systems comes back and they're all run down, the last thing you want to be doing is taking that dog on a 5-mile run, because they can't support. That's going to do more harm than good. So diet, exercise, and then supplementation. So we're recommending specific supplements to address these specific body issues. So it's not like a one-off supplement or like a spray and pray approach. Like I should be taking vitamin D, I should be taking this. It's no, the exact supplement to support that exact body system and need. And phase 2 of this is we're going to be creating our own custom blend, because we know it's not sustainable to be buying 15 different supplements and it's a lot of work. So phase 2 of this is creating a custom supplement blend based off your dog's exact lab results. 1 scoop, top of the food. Here's your easy solution.
Do you guys have that already in place?
So we have the infrastructure in place, just not launching with that. So that'll probably come, 9-10 months down the road.
That's great. That makes sense. And what do you say to people? I've had veterinarians on that don't believe in supplementation. What's your take on that?
I think it's necessary when the body system is when the dog is at a point where it needs support and diet's not going to do it. It needs a little extra. It's a very important, but I'm a big believer is like, once you optimize the dog and the systems are good, like food is medicine, let medicine be the food, like focus on that. But supplementation, Dr. Ava believes in it. This is like therapeutical grade supplementation. And you need certain molecules, you need certain botanicals and natural herbs to help heal. And without that, because the body's so run down, so you need a little extra.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and it's hard, like, again, with supplements and minerals and vitamins for people, like, bro, I didn't, like, it's just the more it's kind of like, oh man, like for me when I travel, I'm like, I wish I could just go to this fast food place and get something. I can't. First of all, I feel like absolute garbage because I haven't had fast food in years. Second of all, I know it's in there. None of it is going to be nutrition, and it's going to make me feel like crap. So it's kind of the same thing with dog. Not, I shouldn't say that. It's not the same thing with dogs. But what I was going there with that is I've got into a lot of supplements now. So I have like a multivitamin. I do my fish oil. I do my vitamin D, my liposomal vitamin D. I've done intravenous NAD. I do the cold.
All the things.
All the things,
Yeah.
man. Right. So with dogs, as a consumer, I don't think the supplement game is hardly started yet. Personally, like I don't know. I've seen a couple different people come out with like a supplement, like a daily supplement blend. But for humans, it's like you can go to CVS or Rite Aid or the local gas station and pick up a cheap thing of vitamin C that's not even vitamin C, right? But for dogs, so how, and this is just me being curious, which is what this podcast is just teaching me, and the listeners and watchers and viewers are along for the ride. How can we tell a good supplement from a bad one? I have this app, just again, I learn 90% of things off of podcasts. For those of you listening, I have this app called Suppco, SUPPCO. which scans, it's kind of like Yucca, but for supplements. So it scans your overall stack, right? So I have my whole stack in here, like what proteins, my fatty acids. I do the Quinton hypersonic waters, blah, blah, blah. And it tells you, like, okay, this could be better because of the where they get it, the third party testing and stuff. Dog owners are probably going to get hit hard the next 3 to 5 years on supplementation and vitamins. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm also trying to develop some sort of supplement because I've been taking a lot of different stuff for me and now my dog. I've been doing peptides for my dogs. I've been on like a BPC 157 for my older dog who went through um, in my opinion, now in hindsight, and I probably shouldn't have done the TPLO surgery, but I did, and I wish I didn't. But anyway, so she's on BPC 157, and I'm actively, you know, trying to get better and with myself. So I'm not saying that these things are bad. However, from your experience diving deep into the supplement game and obviously educating yourself as much as you have, because I've done the same thing with dog training. Like I don't have a certification in dog training. I'm passionate about it. I've been doing it since I was 2 years old. I- it's what I'm good at, right?
Yep.
It's why God put me here, right? I could in a week go get a certification hang on the wall to make some people happy, but so to your point, like I really admire and appreciate and respect somebody like yourself who've just I want to know more from myself. I've had other like Angela, who is my mushroom friend, like same thing. She dove into like her dog was diagnosed with a certain thing and she dived into it and blah blah blah. So dog owners, I think, are going to get inundated the next 3 to 5 years heavy, and I think you're going to be able to find supplements on every shelf, Petco, PetSmart, your local places. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but tell me what to look for, like because the pharmaceutical game, I've realized again, having for an example, Dr. Judy on is like the individuals in the pharmaceutical company are now and have been getting into the dog space because it's less regulated. They don't have to. There's not as much red tape, so they can kind of push something into market really fast, and dog owners have no idea. And typically, it's not, from my research, harmful. It just doesn't do shit. So you're wasting your money,
Yep.
right? It's not like if you give your dog this supplement, it's usually just like rice flour and that's it. There's like no nutrient battery, but it's got really good marketing. They paid a good influencer. Um,
Or they have a vet clinic pushing it.
yeah,
That's a whole
yeah.
nother thing with
They got a
pharmaceutical companies and these
yes,
corporate
yes.
owned
They
vet
got the
clinics working together.
which is what I mean is like it's to be objective here. Like if I were to come out with something, I would call Dr. Ava Frick and be like, hey, can you approve this? And that would be good because she would look at it and go, no. Or she'd say, yeah. And I could, pay her to put her name on it because I'm not a doctor. There is benefits to that. But then there's also people who are just waiting. Like there's few and far in between, like doctors out there that have MD next to their name that live in their parents' basement probably. And it's like, hey, can I give you a $5,000 so you can say that this doctor recommends it and I can put it on my website? Yep, that happens.
Oh yeah,
So
vet approved.
vet approved, doctor approved, white coat. And then
Uh-huh.
we did the infomercial. It's like this beautiful blonde girl with like the white coat. And it's like, but that's not who actually approved it. It's some random dude. Anyway,
Yep.
I digress. So how can dog owners, as this starts to ramp up, like I know for peptides, for an example, we talked about fatty acids and the aminos, and there's so much going on, right? I know that when I look at a peptide company, because it's not FDA approved yet, for many reasons, like I'm looking at third party testing, I'm looking at making sure it's medical grade. It's not like, a knockoff from somewhere and you're like, and again, I don't know, it could be harmful, but for the most part, you're just wasting your money, right? How can dog owners start to decipher good supplements and vitamins and minerals from others as this ramps up?
I think it's a lot how we do it on the human side. Like you have an app, they'll probably come up with an app. You want to make sure that they're third party tested. They come from a reputable company. Maybe there's a doctor that or a veterinarian that you respect that's promoted it or talks well about it. But when it comes to the supplement game, because there is going to be inundation, right?
For sure.
There's so much precision supplementation. That's the next level. I don't take any supplements that I know my body doesn't need. Like I do the hair test every 120 days on myself. I see where I'm at, where my minerals at. I base my supplementation based off that.
Could you define precision supplementation?
Precision supplementation is having biomarkers or lab results, clinical results that tell you that you need to take it, that you're deficient in it, or that you need it, or you need to benefit from it. That's
Could-
the way I go about it. There's other ways, obviously, like, you have your pillars like vitamin D, gotta have it. If you're in New York and it's winter, you don't have sun, you need that.
Bro.
Yeah,
Even,
you guys,
even in the summer,
you
bro.
guys know that more than me. I'm from
It's
Florida,
June and I need it.
you need it. So there's like, magnesium, iron. There's pillars like your multivitamin that you need to take because
Yeah.
human studies, everyone's predominantly deficient in those. But don't go too crazy. Like, do the proper tests, know exactly what your body needs, and not be like a forever thing. Because once your body's supported and you're at optimal levels, you can move on to the next thing and the next thing, and not take something forever just because it's promoted by a podcast or a doctor that you like.
Yeah. So with the markers that you're seeing, can you just define the biomarkers for people? Because I think that's like a buzzword that when you hear that, it's kind of a buzzword where people are like, I've heard that so many times by so many people, but I don't know exactly what it is.
So depending on the diagnostic test, like if you took a gut test, there would be specific bacterial biomarkers, right? Like, homeostasis and your microbiome. If it's the fur test, we're testing minerals and toxins. So those biomarkers would be more around the minerals, individual mineral levels, and then more importantly, the mineral ratios.
Got it.
And we could have Dr. Avon. She could do a master class on this, but specific mineral ratios will tell you how certain body systems are functioning. And that's what we really look at, is those ratios. And then from that, we can know, like, I don't know off the top of my head, but a certain ratio will tell you how well the thyroid's functioning. And if it's sluggish, there are certain vitamins that help support a sluggish thyroid. Selenium. Selenium is a good one that helps with conversion of T3 to T4, which is what the thyroid needs. That's the usable form.
Have you done a lot of research on thyroid stuff
For dogs,
for people?
for people, a lot of people have hyperthyroidism. It's an autoimmune disease. With dogs, Dr. Ava says 99% of dogs are more hypo. Cats are more hyper.
Yeah.
Faster thyroid than with dogs. But that's an area. It's just something I keep mentioning because the endocrine system is so important, and it's one that's constantly in attack because of the dog's environment, because of what we have. And the dog doesn't leave the house much, right? With the cleaning products, the plug-in fragrances.
Bro.
So bad. We had a dog that was having seizures, and we traced it back to a plug-in fragrances that this lady had 4 or 5 in her little apartment, like 600 square foot apartment. The dog was just...
Dude, so we had a client in New Jersey. I'm not exaggerating. She had a Bed Bath and Beyond.
Bed Bath & Beyond. I think they're out of business now, but
No, not that one. The other one. Bath Body Works.
Bath and Body Works.
I get them
yeah.
confused.
Yeah.
She had one of those plugins, I think, in every outlet. Then she had the 3-wick candles going on every end table.
With the tin wicks.
Yes. So when we walked in, I had a film crew with me at the time, and when we walked in, we were like, oh my, like I couldn't. So again, guys, I'm sorry that you have to hear this so much, but it's just part of who I am now. But my wife and I, we, like, she is like she's like the brains behind the operation. I just kind of follow suit because I trust her. That's why I married her. So when she's like, hey,
Partnership.
yes, good partnership for sure. Raising kids, just going through life. When she's like, hey, I listened to this podcast and I did my research. This stuff is, so we got rid of the Tide. We got rid of the Dawn. We got rid of the fake synthetic candles and the fragrances because it's carcinogens. It causes all these bad things. Bang, bang, boom, boom. So now I'm super sensitive to those things that smell. My kids, our grandparents, they all switched their laundry detergent because now my kids, since they were born, were basically born into a world that you and I were not born into. Like, we were in Tide and the Dawn dish soaps and the little cute bear on the fabric softeners. Like, we're pouring that shit everywhere because it smells good, right?
Surprised we came out as good as we did.
Telling you, right? We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But my kids, if they lay on somebody who uses Tide, they break out. That's how sensitive they are. right? And so when I walked into that house, I was like, oh my God, like so I'm thinking, so this dog is going crazy. And in my head, I was like, I need to say something because this is crazy. I can't even stay. Like, it was so hard for us. Like, when we got out of there, we were like, you know, that scene off SpongeBob where like Sandy Cheeks brings SpongeBob into her glass dome and he needs water and he's like freaking out.
His eyes are all red.
Yes.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah.
That's how we were when we got out. We were like, right? And God bless them. They're amazing people and stuff. They don't know. They don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
That's kind of why I do this podcast, because I'm like, hey, if you download Supco or you download Yucca, scan your shit that you're putting in your body. Look what it is. Because here's the thing. It's not that you can't have cheese or sausage or chips or whatever. It's just there's alternatives that are cleaner. That's what I tell people. People are like, oh, you don't eat Doritos? I'm like, bro, no, because of these reasons. But now they have these. And that's why all these companies are now coming out with Doritos just came out with the Naked Blend, and they're realizing people are
Things are
waking up.
changing. Yeah.
100%. We're like, I don't want this crap in me. Why? Because it tastes good. It's very short-lived, right? And then I feel like crap. And then anyway, I digress. But to your point, so many people with their dogs are using the synthetic stuff. The cleaners are the worst, like the
Floor cleaners,
mhm,
because their paws are so absorbent.
Swiffer, Lysol, like all that stuff went into. We've been using a company called Branch Basics. No affiliation, but my wife listened to a podcast with the owner, and same thing to your point and to my point. She was like, once I found out how much toxins are in the cleaning products that my children are eating off, and my dogs are, I go with the Swiffer, and my dog's pads, which are like sponges that soak straight up to the bloodstream,
Yep.
are stepping on. For what? Because it smells good? It's not cleaning anything. It's just, that's the thing. Like, once I woke up to the fact that anything that smells that good and tastes that good is probably toxic for you.
Yep.
And it's just, and like I said, I'm like, God, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I hate that, but
Uh-huh.
I'm like, dang. It's the same thing. I had Rodney Habib on, I think last year or something, and we were talking about this, and he's like, he was talking about fertilizer and stuff like that for your yard, and he's talked about how dangerous it is for your kids and for your dogs and ourselves, and I was like, yeah, no, Rodney. I was like, I just worked on my green yard. I wanted like you know, so then I found a bunch of organic products,
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely,
figuring it out.
and like one of the like heavy metals, chromium. It's a popular ingredient in a lot of these fertilizers that you can spot in the fur. You are using these, and it's not. It couldn't even be your yard. You could be downwind from somebody.
Neighbor.
And then talking about dogs and that poor dog that was in that environment, dogs have like 3 million more receptors, and they're so much more sensitive to these airborne chemicals.
Yeah, dude.
I was surprised that dog was even functioning.
Dude, I know I have ADHD. Yeah, that was my point.
Yeah.
By saying that
Yeah.
is that I felt so bad for the dog, because us humans, because I think the dog's olfactory senses are 100,000 times more sensitive than ours. So that dog was, you know, struggling, and I couldn't even think straight. I couldn't imagine the dog, you know, and that was just something with the owners too. They probably were like really insecure about maybe having two dogs in the house, and it was, I don't know, but it was tough. So okay, so all right, let me back up a little bit. Okay, so
Oh, real quick while we're on
please,
the topic,
please.
environmental working group, Skin Deep. Use that site. You can plug in any of your household cleaning products, and it'll give you a score, toxic score.
Let's go.
So, plug that in. Make sure people, it's easy way to understand, are my products safe, or are they?
What's
Are
it
they not
called?
safe?
In
Environmental working group, and then go Skin Deep is the like subdomain, and then you'll be able to plug in any of your household cleaners or fertilizers or what, and it'll tell you. Also, for women with makeup, you can plug that in there too. I don't want to ruin their day, but
dude,
there's
I know,
a
but
lot of toxins in makeup.
that's what I'm saying though, is like, you can't unsee it, guys. Like, you got to be careful. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's one kryptonite that I have is the Doritos. Can you tell I'm hungry? Okay, again, ADHD. Sorry. People who are listening probably are used to this and probably laughing, or maybe just clicking off because they hate it. But I'll tell you this: the thyroid thing. The reason why I asked about that is because I recently was with my cousins in North Carolina, and she's like, "You might have a thyroid issue." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you eat constantly." Because I do. I'm like constantly
That would
eating.
be hyper.
Dude,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, it's just something, especially in my adult years. I don't know. It's hard to remember if I was like that as a kid, but like, it's a thing. Like, my friends and family joke. They're like, "Where's Tom going to stop on the way home after dinner?"
Yeah.
I remember when we were in Hawaii one time, we went out for pizza, And on the way home, I stopped for a poke bowl because I was just, for some reason, it could be my metabolism, but also my cousin like literally 2 weeks ago, she's like, you should get your thyroid checked. She's like, that's a symptom of like a hyperthyroidism.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
turned on.
dude, because I just eat all day, and that's like,
Yeah.
and that's been really hard for me for clean stuff because it's like I either have to make a ribeye steak or I have to do a
Something calorie
yep,
dense. Yeah.
yeah, like a steak, an avocado with grass-fed butter, or I'll do right now like one of my favorite lunches is line caught tuna, and then I do like olive oil and smoked paprika, and I put it on sourdough, and then I sprinkle like this other pepper flake on it, and I do a little bit of more lemon zest on top, and that's like
You got some there for us.
that's fire.
Yeah, that is
I like that.
amazing.
I'd like that right now. I'm so hungry.
But a lot of the processed foods are like there's 0 calories. And that's why my dog is like can eat until it pops. It like eats its whole bowl and is coming to you for human food.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause there's no calories.
No food.
There's no food. There's no nutrients. That's what I meant. There's no nutrients in there. So they're never full because there's no nutrients in the food. So they're gonna go like, I need more nutrients. Where are the nutrients? So that's why you can feel like a dog, and my dog can just eat until it pops. It's not because it's the food that has no nutrients in it that's causing them to be that way.
Is there any recommendations through all the studies and research that you've done? Are there any diets that you have found to be better or for worse? Not particular brands, but just like diets in general for dogs from all the testing that you guys have been doing.
Dr. Avery always leans towards the ancestral diet, which is high protein, higher fats, minimal carbohydrates, some roughage. Again, when we're talking like
Roughage?
fiber,
Okay.
make sure it's lightly cooked or steam al dente. Last thing you want to be giving a dog is raw vegetables because they can't process that.
What about fermented?
Fermented kimchi,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we have
From a probiotics.
We have a company called Gussie's Gut, and they ferment vegetables.
Okay.
Like, so everything's fermented in it.
So a little bit of that, put a topper
Yeah.
on the food. So when the dog breaks down the fiber back to these short chain fatty acids and postbiotics, right? You need a little bit of that in the diet. So that's going to help with their microbiome and, prevent gut dysbiosis, keep that gut microbiome balanced. So, a little bit of roughage in the diet is good under like 4%, 5%.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at it like a plate and looking at it like a pie chart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some of the real deal like raw feeders. I always like from afar. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like they go in and they do all the different quail eggs and
Oh yeah, sardines and
Yeah.
all the good stuff.
yeah, it's great. It's great that their dog is so diverse in their diet and then probably the benefits.
Yeah, diversity is switching up the diet every once in a while. And don't feed the same brand or dog food ever. It's good to mix it up.
Mhm.
Diversity is crucial because your gut microbiome is diverse. So if you tried it on for size, if you took all the bacteria in your gut microbiome, let's start with humans, it would be the size of a basketball.
Mm-hmm.
These things shape so many things. If you did a dog, it'd probably be like a tennis ball size. But back to your kids and cravings. Cravings are dictated by our actually bacteria. So when you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria and you start craving sweets all the time,
Bro, that's what I
like, because they feed off the sugar and they're like, that's their fuel source. When you cut that off and you stop eating the sweets, those cravings go away.
Yeah.
So these bacteria, we're really a host, and we have these bacteria that drive so many factors. Our mental health tied to our gut bacteria, food cravings tied to our gut bacteria. They do so many things where you got to look at yourself as a host, not just a single being, that you have
Yep.
other living organisms inside of you that help us function and help us live.
Yeah, it's amazing once you dive into it what you can discover. So with your test, I want to get back to that for a moment because I've that's why the podcasts are podcasts, right? It's not an interview
We
or
just
an infomercial.
weave
That's
in
what
and out.
yeah. So yeah, because for me, this podcast again is just me having conversations with somebody that I'm interested in. It's a lot of people when they email me, or like before they come on, they're like, what set of questions, which is fine. We always give them like, preset questions if they're interested. But I always tell people this isn't an interview. You're not going to sit down and I have I have 4 questions that I wanted to ask you, which I already did in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's just a natural conversation. I like having a conversation with somebody organically and naturally and
The best.
in truth.
Conversational. I've been on a couple of podcasts where it was like that, where it's like she would ask me a
Yeah, it's
question,
like,
I would answer.
where are you
Next
from?
question. Yeah.
What do you like to eat?
I felt like I was like at fault. I was like, I know I'm better than this. What's going on?
No, I know, and also too, like I've seen a lot of people, um, particularly veterinarians who aren't used to the lights, cameras, and action, right? And they come in, they're so nervous,
Freeze up.
and I'm just like, so what'd you have for dinner last night? You
Yeah.
know, and they're like, oh well, and we just start talking. It just makes people
Oh,
comfortable.
it's
So that's
where
it.
you get the gold, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's the thing about podcasting is like sometimes I'm self-conscious and apologize, but I shouldn't because that's just what this is. It's just us having a conversation. So going back to the test, right? So what are the other huge benefits? And people are listening to this right now because I want dog owners to be empowered. I want them to have their dog live healthier, longer lives, or at least I want and empowerment is a really good thing to say because I want them to know why their dog, just like me, like I have this stupid thing on my arm that's
Yep.
plugged into me and this Oura ring and all the things. I want people to know how to help their dog live a longer, healthier life. But also, I want them to know why their dog looks a certain way, acts a certain way, sleeps a certain way,
Eats a certain
sounds a certain way. So, what other things? I want you to really sell what you're doing right here, because I think that what you're doing is incredible, and I think it's just going to keep evolving into bigger and better things. And I think at some point there is going to be an Oura ring for a dog or a Whoop strap or something, which I already know there are companies
There's a couple out there, but
that are doing it.
the tough part about this is why the Aura and the Whoop are so accurate is it's skin to skin contact. The Phi collars and the other ones in the world, you have that thick layer of fur.
Yeah.
So the
Tough, right?
sensors aren't quite
I
there.
wonder how you do it. Maybe you could do something like under the skin
A chip under the skin
or
would
something.
be probably the next wave. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you know, if it's not in like I mean they do the chips for like, you know, they scan it to figure out who your owner is. I wonder if they could do like a
I
subcutaneous
think
like
it's moving that way. We're probably a couple of years out, but yeah, I would say that's probably the
that'd be cool.
future. Yeah.
Just to like have with your app. You
hmm
could take it out, you could scan it.
What is their blood sugar at? What is
Mhm.
their, how is their thyroid functioning?
Yeah.
Kidney?
Yeah, the thyroid thing is really interesting to me. Okay, so going back, you take the test, right? And once you take the test from you guys, what are the other things? What other benefits dog owners can see? Like, what are people going like, wow, I didn't know that, and wow, when I did this, this is changing. Like, what are the biggest takeaways dog owners are finding from your test right now?
So we've touched on diet, right? Is like just getting to know your dog. Like this, I say, kind of gives your dog's body a voice every 120 days. So you get to speak to it. You get to see exactly what's going on inside their body and exactly what to do to fix it.
Yeah.
Um, it's set up in a really easy way. A lot like Oura Ring, you have scores, right? You have your sleep score, your activity score. In this, you'll have your dog's kidney score, heart score. Just it gives you an in look to your dog that you would never get for even with a standard vet visit or your annual vet visit where they like kind of look at it like observationally. This gives you the answers to the questions that you got. And it's going to allow you to be preventative. So it's going to catch these issues early. And that's the most important part. That's the reason why we did this is we understand if you catch issues early, you can prevent huge ones from happening. And then the downstream effects of that is like the high vet bills. I always tie back to that because like people are like screaming with a pitchfork. Like I've seen the comments of like there's posts to the dark vet industry of how people are so pissed off of how high cost have become. So the best way to mitigate that is through prevention and getting a full internal look on your dog's body of how everything is functioning.
Yeah, to be proactive. I love that. What's the entry cost for your product right now?
So it's a membership model. It's $475 for the year. So you look at it, I call it an investment because you're preventing all the downstream costs that could happen. I mean, people are getting banged over the head for $500-600 vet bills left and right. I mean, talk about reoccurring skin issues. Like a lot of these people are going to the vet month over month, and it's the same outcome, same hamster wheel. So, but right now we're doing our pre-sale because we launch at the end of the month.
Oh, you haven't even launched yet.
Yeah, we launch next month.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we do our pre-sale, $365. It's on sale for, so $1 a day, I like to say, less than your Starbucks coffee. So if you can afford premium coffee, you can afford $1 for your dog a day.
And is it, do you guys have payment options for that or is that all up front? Because I know that that's going to be a question for sure.
Yeah, so right now it's upfront, but we are looking at payment options like break it up quarterly because it is a membership for the year. Either break it up quarterly or, possibly doing an upfront payment and then paying it upon like the second test, third test.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Or like Afterpay, I think is a
Afterpay is one, yep.
yeah, that like you do that at checkout. We have that, I think, for some of our Shopify stuff where it's easier for people to just do payments. But you got to look into that too, because sometimes the Afterpay stuff, like they'll charge you a pretty significant interest, and then you end up paying more. But I don't know, Taylor, is that right? Afterpay? Do they charge you interest?
They do if you don't pay it down in time.
Oh, right. So like anything else, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're like, okay, now it's
yeah,
$600.
exactly.
Dang, yeah. Okay, and then the turnaround time is 48 hours once you guys get it to the lab, or once you.
Once you get it, so it's probably gonna take 4 to 5 days shipping from wherever you're at to our lab in California. But once the lab receives it, it's a 48-hour turnaround time.
That's pretty cool. When you guys approached the lab, were they like, "Wow, this is cool," or were they doing it for other people, or how did that happen? Because I'm assuming when you guys kind of come up with a proprietary idea or system or test, it's got to be hard to find somebody that can do it accurately.
So there's not many labs that do this in the United States. Obviously, it's a niche diagnostic. The two that do it in the United States, uh, they didn't want to work with us. And this goes back to like the dark vet industry and big pet, right? They had some
Pharma.
big pharma. They had some big contracts with big pharmaceutical companies, and they were gun ho about it. They're like, all of a sudden, we didn't hear from them. Just went blank. Never responded to my emails after that.
Mm.
So we're like, interesting. And that was the point, and kind of tying back to like the entrepreneur side of this, of the highs and lows of entrepreneur. Like that was a major blow because after that, it took me 4.5 months to find a lab that would work with us. So that was a low point in this process where I almost gave up on it because I was like, without a lab, we have no business. Um, but I was so passionate. I knew something like this had to come out. I just kept moving forward, and hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. Finally, a lab that was doing this with plants. They were doing plant tissue mineral analysis. Said, interesting. We never thought about doing with fur, but we have the same exact equipment, same exact processes. So it was just a unique opportunity to do something with them. And without them, we wouldn't have a business because the two labs that do this right um, don't want to work with us for
Who?
obvious reasons.
Yeah. Who do you think's what kind of tests are they running for the big guys? Like, are they doing follicle tests, or are they just doing other tests that would be competition?
Yeah, well, they do blood testing, gut microbiome testing, but I guess because we're a new incumbent and it was more around preventative care, obviously these pharmaceutical companies and labs work with veterinarian clinics,
Mm-hmm.
reactive. The preventative model disrupts their model in a huge way because a healthy dog is not a profitable dog. So you look about talking about dark vet care and how all these private equities has gobbled up all these individually owned clinics.
Mm-hmm.
Huge problem. I mean, I think it's like 60%, 80% of emergency vet clinics are now owned by private equity. And so, yeah, prevention is not good for their business model. So they want to fight that as much as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they were like, if these guys come in and that will ultimately hurt our bottom line because we'll see less dogs with potentially with the diseases and cancers and things.
Exactly. The chronic diseases that are all preventable, if you're doing the right measures, feeding the right food, knowing that's the huge.
But they will be the first person to offer you a big lump sum of money for your company, I reckon. See, that's the thing that I struggle with as a human, like ethically. I always struggle with. It's the same thing with what were we talking about recently? Oh, like THC, because as I travel, it's like I'm always interested to be like, oh, so I dove into like alcohol and the THC industry because basically the alcohol industry is lobbying and fighting really hard. I don't think it's just them. I think it is some like the old timers that are like weed's bad or whatever, and they're doing everything they can to lobby to not get THC legal in certain states until they own all of it, right?
Yep.
Because the amount of people who are drinking alcohol now has decreased significantly. Like the Gen Zs and stuff, they're not hardly drinking, and that's why like when you like back in our day, when you go to a bar, there wasn't NAs. Like if you had an NA, it would just be like, oh, you must be an alcoholic.
Yep.
Like that was it. Like if you drank an old Duels, bro, it was like
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, like you're struggling with like alcoholism and you're just at a bar drinking an O'Doul's because you have to. Now it's like there's literally every single big gun out there with an NA, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, or anything like that. But now we're just seeing this significant decline in alcohol sales on all accords. And now marijuana, because it's starting to become legal and that's going straight up. And so I was in Tennessee recently and I was talking to I went into a dispensary, and if you look on chat says it's illegal, but it's like this loophole with the Farm Act where you can. It's like such a funny loophole, dude. It's basically if it's Delta 9 hemp derivative THC, it doesn't turn into THC until you light it on fire, right? So they can sell it. It has THC. So they can sell flour. They can sell gummies and edibles and seltzers and all this stuff. Because I'm just like a student to all this, trying to figure out what moves the needle. Why are companies doing certain things? I'm very fascinated in what's this word? Consumer behavior,
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
I'm trying to think like, why are people doing certain things? I'm trying to figure it out, right? And so it's really interesting loophole. They're like, oh no, all of this is legal because it doesn't turn into THC until you light it on fire or whatever.
And that's done at home, so it's not on us.
It's on us,
Yeah.
right? So it's interesting. And I was talking to her and I said, I thought this was illegal here because it was, a couple years ago when I went, there's dispensaries everywhere. Now there's limited. And she's like, no, it is. They keep pushing it back. She goes, it's going to keep getting pushed back until the how do you say the Bush? Anheuser?
Anheuser, yeah.
Until the Anheuser and the Millers and the Coors or whoever else, like whoever owns them, which is even the bigger ones, the Black Rocks or whoever the frick it is, until they buy up like 70% of these. He's like, it's not going to be really legal in every state until the alcohol industry has a good grip on it, which is crazy because you would think as a consumer, it would be like, oh, the politicians don't want us to smoke weed or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, that's actually not it. It's all about money, typically, from my research, which is subjective. But it seems to me that's what's going on. Is like, it's not going to be a legal thing until because they have all the money. Like, they have all the money. Like, the alcohol industry has been gold minded for the last 4 decades,
Eventually, they're going to roll into the non-alcoholic beverage space, and once their bottom line hurts enough, I mean, that's the direction where it's going.
Exactly. Well, that's why I mentioned it is it would hurt. So the people who didn't want to do the test they were probably, it's the same thing. Dude, I did this, so who owns, was it NBC? Somebody owns, I forget who owns Good Morning America. But anyway, Good Morning America, the team over there, whether it was NBC or whoever, they basically reached out to me and they wanted me to be a spokesperson for their thing. And all of the representatives, like the people who were like putting it on, were so excited. I was so excited. And it was like this cool thing, right? And we were like gearing up to do like this right in between state and international, this like domestic, like little like spokes tour where I would do GMA and I would do all these because they own all the channels across the country. So I would do some out in California, and it was basically just like a pet adoption. It was a Clear the Shelters event, right? And one of the big agencies, I can't remember who, NBC maybe, they own kind of like that company. It's Clear the Shelters or whatever, which is great. I've done it for Today's Show a couple times, and it's great. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's clearing the shelters. It's a good thing. But I remember it was so weird. I got on a call, and we've been talking about this for months. And I got on a call, and it was like, a couple older ladies, they were just doing this kind of stuff before they retired. They're really sweet people. And I remember I got on the call and they were all like super sour and stoned, like not high, but like stone faced, right?
Yeah.
They were like, and I was like,
What happened?
What happened? And I got on, they're like, Tom, we really, I could tell they didn't know how to say it,
Yeah.
right? Because we had this very like, they're like, hey, you're really good on camera. You've done national TV many times. We would love you to be a spokesperson to help clear the shelters. I'm like, perfect.
Let's go.
Yeah, I don't want to get paid. That sounds awesome to me. Like, the more I can help dogs, the better. Let's do it, right? And we worked on it for months. I remember I got on and they were like so disheartened, and I could tell they're like, well, we so basically, when we went to kick this thing off, unfortunately, our main sponsor, which I'm not going to say, but it's a big food brand, they we can't use you because you're in affiliation with another food company. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was like, it's really nice to meet all you guys. And they were like, so, they were, to me, I was like, business.
Yeah.
Like,
Get it.
I get it. Like, this stuff happens. But to them, being just dog owners and kind of, they were probably just behind the scenes. Like, it wasn't like clear the shelters is not like their main thing. It was just something they were probably doing because they cared about it. And I could just see they were so like disheartened and confused. And they were like, we can't use you because of this. And it was like, and I get it. But my point is for the average person, you don't see what what that type of like commitment and money does. It changes the landscape completely. Like if you have a big company or a big pharma or a big a VCA or something that owns, it's a butterfly effect. It's a tidal wave of what it touches. And I've even done that in shelters. Like I've volunteered at certain shelters, and you would think like, okay, Tom, you're a professional. You have experience with behavioral cases. You feel really comfortable with dogs with bite histories. You also objectively have had a good track record of helping, doing these behavior modifications, and it's what I love to do. You would be surprised how many shelters would rather see dogs be put down than helped because of politics. Like if I came in, it's like, if you said like I can cure cancer tomorrow, there's going to be some people, which probably has already happened in our world, of like, how are you going to do it?
That doctor disappears.
Who is it going to affect? Right. Exactly. How is it going to hurt our bottom line? Which is so sinister to even talk about. And I feel like bad even saying it, but it's just, people just don't understand some of the unfortunate, like, not literal, but some of the unfortunate dark things that happen with things like that. And that's why I think, like, again, when I talk about, when I say you can't unsee things, it's almost in a dark way where I'm like, we have been tricked and fooled for so long to believe a certain thing and a certain narrative, when it's like, most of the things that we're eating and taking and supplementing occurs naturally somewhere that you can just go get naturally,
Free.
for free. Like I had my friend Angela on, who was talking about mushrooms. Like she's like, penicillin from a mushroom. Like she's talking about all these different things that are like so natural, but because companies have figured out a way to trick us to think like, even, this is my last thing. I'll go off my soapbox after this. But even my son has a really bad diaper rash right now, and I'm looking at the diaper rash cream, and then my wife was like, just do coconut oil and arrowroot powder or something, which is like a natural like conjoinant, and it kind of just like, not conjoinant, but it binds things together and just soothes it or whatever. And I was like, it's just so fascinating. And I take products every single day of my life. I'm not against products. It's just fascinating that as humans, we have gotten down this path of being consumers to just buy everything. But the reality is a lot of the stuff that we consume and buy and purchase is just because it's been formulated and then marketed. But a lot of this stuff is actually really natural. Like when I have people on talking about dog nutrition, they're like, well, it's organs, meat, and bone. Blueberries, carrots, strawberries, whatever, right? But
You can do it for way cheaper.
yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is exciting. I'm really excited. So you guys launch when?
At the end of this month.
At the end of this month. It's now June. And so if people, let me ask you one more question. How did you link?
I'm here all day. My flight's not till 7.
How did you link up with Dr. Ava?
So Dr. Ava, so long story short, when you asked me like how I got into this, when I had the gut health company, I had a falling out with my business partner. He was doing some things that didn't agree with my morals and ethics. Walked away from that, and I was sort of in this like no man spirit in my life. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I was going to do, but I made a promise myself: you're not going back to a 9 to 5. Like you're an entrepreneur, you love health and wellness, you're going to find a way to make it work within this space. So everyone's like, you're so passionate about health and wellness, like why don't you do like health coaching? So I was like, I guess, anything to keep the lights on, because at that point, like I put all my savings into the gut health company, and I had like nothing. So I was
You
like,
didn't get any exit from that at all?
no, I just walked away because it was better that way, cleaner.
Yeah,
Didn't
got
want
it.
anything to do with that company or the partners who walked away. So I was like, okay, health coaching, I'll figure it out. So I started using that hair tissue mineral analysis test. We call it fur with dogs, but fur tissue on my clients. And I saw the amount of insights I was getting and the transformations that they were seeing from it by like, cleaning up their diet and doing all these things. And then I started hearing about a vet that was doing it with dogs, and that was the aha like moment, the light bulb moment. You kind of like,
Mm.
oh, like that's it. Because I know like people will do way more for their health, way more for their dog's health versus their own health, and it was an easier market and a more of a blue ocean opportunity to get into. So it's a niche space doing this test, and they all kept talking about this vet. So I was like, I gotta find her. I gotta like talk
Mhm.
to her. So I went to her website, found that she had a book on all this. I bought her book, read her book, emailed her, like just letting her know how insightful it is and just like how amazing this information is. Didn't think she was gonna reply. She replied, um, and she was like that. And then we started building a friendship through
Cool.
email. It was like You Got Mail was like Tom Hanks
Yeah, yeah.
or something.
Meg Ryan, I
Meg
think.
Ryan, yeah. But it wasn't like that. But it was
Yeah.
just like we were just
Yeah,
creating a friendship over email.
it's great.
Um, and then, ended up going to a vet convention with her, helping out on one of her booths. And then we created a really good friendship and then eventually a partnership. And that's how it all came about. It all like the universe kind of wigged and weaved and wagged. And here we are.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Yeah, she's a legend. Like I said, I didn't.
And she doesn't even, she's like what's it, like a poet and you don't even know it. She's a legend. She doesn't even know it. Like she's just so modest and just
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, she's really cool. Like I said, I didn't like we were talking about. I think maybe before we were on air, or maybe not. I can't remember. But yeah, so many people have come on, and they're like, she's really opened up the door for me because they're like, man, if you had her on, like, that's the bar,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, and she's so cool. Like, did she tell you about what we did after our podcast by any chance?
No, no.
So I was bringing her back to her hotel because I could just tell she's a down to earth like country girl.
Yep.
I love that. Like she's just it's just people that you meet. You can just you're just a good person.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just it's you can just feel it, right? And so anyway, so I was like, oh, I'll give you a ride back to your hotel if you want. She's like, yeah, sure, jump in. So she jumps in, and then it was around Christmas time, and I was like, I feel bad, like, because I know what it's like to travel. I've traveled so much in my career, and I know what it's like to travel and not know, anybody or what to do, and you kind of feel a little lonely. And so I was like, hey, my family's getting together for like dinner. If you want to
Like,
go. She's like, yeah, let's go. I'm hungry. I'm like, okay.
yeah.
So I brought her to like a brunch, and it was like there was like a Santa Claus, and like my nieces were there, and they're in town, and it was like my sister and her new boyfriend and my in-laws, and it was just like a mixed group, and I just knew she was so cool that because obviously I'm mindful about who I let around my family and my kids, and
Mhm.
like you're mindful about that, right? And I just had there was no meter going off. Like she just felt like family almost, like it was like no problem.
Yep.
And so I remember we sat down and she just walked up to my dad and gave him a big hug
Uh-huh.
because my dad's also like, it was just so funny because I'm like, this makes sense. My dad is also like a Southern guy, like the nicest guy in the world. He started his own like Be Happy Tude mentality project. Like he's done the Tony Robbins. Like he's that guy.
Yep.
Like he's the happiest guy I've ever met. And he's an amazing individual. And she just walked in and they didn't say a word.
They just knew
They just
intuitively, like,
they just hugged, and I was like, yeah, that checks out. Like
yeah.
that makes sense. She sits down, and my nieces got like the Mickey Mouse pancakes. It was like, the pancakes with the bacon. She ordered that, like whipped cream and everything. And she's just so cool. And so we're just sitting there talking, and my in-laws were down, and they're like, I told her, I said, hey, I'm going to bring my podcast guest. My podcast guest can be anybody from an entrepreneur to a seasoned doctor,
Yep.
right? Or anything in between, or just an old-time dog trainer or whatever. So I didn't really tell him much about it. And then we're sitting down, and she's sitting here, and my father-in-law, Taylor's dad, was over here, and I'm like, he's like, how was the podcast? I was like, great. She's awesome. He's like, yeah, she's really cool. She had like cowboy boots on and like jean
Gotta
jacket.
get up
Yeah,
going.
she's cool,
Yeah.
man. I like her a lot. And I was like, it was good. He's like, do you think she can help out with, they were talking about their dog. I'm like, yeah, go ask her. So he goes down and she's eating and she's like, yeah, go on, go on. And, she's just doing her thing. A lot like, it's the same thing with dog training. People are like, oh, you're a dog trainer. Let me ask you. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, okay. I have no problem with it. It's
Yeah.
just like, by the way, I'm going to keep eating or doing whatever I'm
Well, you
doing.
gotta eat because you
Exactly. Yeah. 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 So it's funny. So he's sitting down there and he's talking to her and she's like, oh, he's limping and he's got his arched and he's like arching his back. And of course she's like a chiropractic genius, right? As far as dogs go, cats too. So she's like, where do you live? He's like, oh, about 20 minutes from here. She looks at me and she goes, do you want to just go to his house after? I'm like, is that okay with you? She's like, yeah, sure. I don't mind. My flight's not till tomorrow or whatever. I'm like, sure. So I end up bringing her to my in-laws' house, which is like a 30-minute drive. We're just talking about life and talking about everything. And it was just a good person, right? I get there. She's adjusting both the huskies. And then I'm like, I just, live two miles away if you want.
you get another one in.
She goes to my house. She's adjusting my dogs. She actually gave me really good insight about, that TPLO surgery. She's feeling the back of my shepherd's leg and she's like, you didn't do physical therapy, did you? I'm like, no. She's like, I can tell this is all balled up back here. She's like, you really need to massage this because this is, I'm like, wow, okay. And then I'll leave it at this. She's walking out. Well, first of all, she buzzed my Mastiff and just put
Yeah.
the hair in her bag.
I'll take that with me.
Took her with her.
She's got plenty of my hair too.
So funny, dude. And then on the way out, she's looking at my cat, and my cat's 14. Not that it matters, but just an older cat laying on the back of my couch, and she's petting my cat, and she goes dunk, and she adjusts my cat. My cat, she goes, he'll feel better tomorrow. She's just a legend, dude.
She is. One of her most amazing gifts is she's just so intuitive. Like,
Yeah.
she knows, like, just her intuition. She knows like certain areas to focus on, and just combining that with her knowledge base is
And her people skills.
her people skills. She's amazing. Like, and we've done podcasts before, and she's just like, I call her One Take Timmy because it's like I was like, the videographer was like, you need a script? You don't have a script? Are you serious? I was like, trust me, this lady does not need a script. And she just boom, 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 fires off. But
I know, man.
I think my lucky stars that like our paths combine.
That's how it happens, man. Serendipity. I believe in a lot of that. Things happen, and what's funny is speaking of serendipity. There's as a human, I always like. Do you ever get into situations where you're like shoulda, woulda, coulda? Like I have a lot of that where I'm like, man, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I remember speaking of Andrew Huberman. For those of you who don't know, he's I think a neuroscientist that is a professor at Stanford University. He's got his own podcast called the Huberman Lab, I think.
Yep.
Just a legend, right? He's been on Rogan a bunch of times. He's just an very intelligent person who kind of helps science become mainstream, right? He's a big figure in that space. And it's just so interesting. When I was in Australia, I was doing a tour over in Australia on the East Coast. And I remember there was this huge convention center and there was like this giant, LED thing. And it was like Mel Robbins and then it was like Huberman. And I was like, man, that's sick, and I'm just a dog trainer doing these little venues, but I was like, that's so inspiring, right? And then I was walking, me and my wife got married in Aspen in August. And so we tend to go back around that time. And now we bring the kids and it's just a thing, right? And I remember walking and you never know who you're going to see in Aspen. And I was walking around and I look at this guy and I'm like, that looks like, I told her, I go, that looks like Andrew Huberman. She's like, really? But he didn't have his sleeves on. So he had huge, sleeves and tattoos and like, I was like, but I don't know if he has tattoos. Like I was kind of taken back. And then we were walking around and he kind of like passed us again. And I heard him like doing a voice memo and I'm like, that's him. I'm like, I'm going to say something to him. I'm in the podcast space. He's a legend in the podcast space. I was like, I should just introduce myself, and I didn't. And I was like, and I kind of kicked myself. I'm like, yeah, but I wanted to give him his privacy because even for somebody like me he's a 10 and I'm a 0.5, sometimes if I get recognized, I like it because I know people are always like, man, I love your stuff. It's helped me so much. And I'm like, awesome. Like that feels good. It's like cathartic. I'm like, I'm doing something, right? It feels good. And I never have an issue with that. And so I was like, man, I should have just said something to him. I didn't. That was like last year. And I kind of kicked myself ever since because I'm like, I've learned a lot from him, right? Especially the cold plunge. The cold plunge has changed my life. Like when I think he was on Rogan and he talked about how much dopamine increases with cold plunging, and it's like 5 times as much as an SSRI or something like that. But it's a natural kind of hit, if you will. Anyway, and so then I saw he got a puppy, and I was like,
Here's my gateway.
yeah, I was like, but I was also like, son of a gun, I should have introduced myself because this would have been like, hey, and
Perfect.
and as a dog trainer, it's just like I'm at this point where, um, you know, it's more about just networking and connecting and helping people at as much scale as I can, right? And so it's okay if I don't get every celebrity that gets a freaking dog. And in fact, I don't, right? I have some, but it just was like one of those things where I was like, that's awesome that he's got a puppy. I definitely should have introduced myself. And then, yeah, and then I commented on one of his posts, and chances are we'll never talk. But it was just a cool thing, where like talking about serendipity with Dr. Ava Frick, and then Huberman followed me last night as I was in the sauna, and I was like, this is weird because I'm in here because of him, and I've thought about like not introducing myself for like a year, and then he followed me because he got a puppy, and it's just like, so again, it may not ever come from anything, but it was like this serendipitous connections. It happens all the time where you start like you kind of cast this net out there, and it's so crazy to see things like, you know what I mean?
When it comes into play, I think when you're in your true alignment, these things just come like this company, albeit it's been very difficult to build because there's been so many moving parts with lab partnerships, veterinarian partnerships, but it, it's been way easier than past companies because it didn't feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. Things have just kind of aligned for me and fallen into place because I think you're in that true alignment. I think that's what's the difference is if you're pursuing something that you're truly passionate about, it doesn't feel like work, and the universe just kind of brings things to you that probably typically wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I have a hard time knowing when to like tee up and hit the ball. Like, that was just a perfect example of like God kind of put this human right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And then 30 seconds later, when I decided to pass, did it again. And I was like,
Twice.
I know. So like, and again, that's just like, that's that I'm not just using that as like the North Star of like, and it happens to me all the time, not just with people, but with opportunities where I'm like, I passed on something. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Maybe I should have dove it. And then it comes by again somehow where it's like, oh, maybe I will hit the ball this time. But it happens all the time. I've done that with so many people. Like I remember I did this. You know who Casey Neistat is?
Easy. No.
He's a YouTube creator. He's like one of the first people on YouTube that vlogged. And I've looked up to him for a long time because I love creating stuff. And, he's just a legend in the space. Like if you ask anybody who's on YouTube, they'll probably know who Casey is. And so I remember when he got same exact thing happened, bro. Like he got a dog, and I was like, man, my opportunity and my selfish thing is like, I'm a professional dog trainer. I really like somebody.
Yep.
And I want to know more about them. As like if I can help them, and then they can residually help me, like organically, naturally, serendipity. It's awesome. It's a win-win. It feels so good to be in those rooms with these people that you've exactly
You guys just keep raising the bar for each other.
keep raising the bar. And so, because he's got so much wisdom, and experience, and it's like, and so I remember I was like, man, he got a new puppy. That's so cool. And I'm in New York, and I remember messaging him. And I remember even when I went down to New York to do like TV or whatever, I'd always like, I wonder if I'm going to run into Casey. Wouldn't that be cool? I'd be like, hey man, you got a new dog. Like, if you ever need anything, let me know. Or if not, like, I know other people in New York I can refer you to or whatever, but it would just be, it's kind of like one of those things that I feel like I can't hang with Huberman, but he's got a dog, and I can definitely hang with that. Same thing with Casey. I can't hang with Casey, but he's got a dog, and now we have this right, where I can get to know this person that I'm influenced by and learned from, right? So that's kind of, it's not about the notoriety of the celebrity. It's just getting to know them and an opportunity to open that door to do so. You know what I mean? And so I remember I messaged Casey, and of course he got like, 10 million, whatever, whatever, right? So we go to Nantucket every year, which is an island right past Cape Cod. And we went out to Nantucket, and apparently Casey has a house there. And I remember I was messaging him for like a year being like, hey man, if you ever need anything, like anytime I was in, I don't want to say it, messaging him for a year. I was messaging him like every time I was in New York, right? So like, you know, maybe once every 2 months or whatever, right? Hey, I'm in New York. If you need anything, let me know, whatever. And I remember I walked into this coffee shop. There's Casey's wife. There's Casey's dog. And I'm like, I told Taylor, I go, "D- what?
What are the
What are
odds?
the odds,
Like,
bro?" And then I remember talking to them, and it was just like so cool. I was like, this is like the whole thing, right? It's just so weird how that
how it
happens.
works. There's no such thing as coincidence, right?
Right.
When you're in true alignment. There's a book that I read called The Alchemist, and it talks about omens, and like
Mm-hmm.
if you turn your back too many times on the omens, they'll stop coming. So with the Huberman, right? This is
Yeah.
your third omen. Let's get this. Let's
Dude,
go.
I gotta,
Let's
yeah,
go. Yeah.
I gotta write that down, dude. There's another book. I do jujitsu, and my professor, who's a black belt, that's what they call them. He was telling me that there's this other book about this guy who, it's a crazy story. He like worked for Elvis, and I remember like I don't want to butcher it, but just another crazy story about a guy who just made it happen, no matter what it took. He like made it happen, where he's like had these crazy dreams of like work, like for an example, literally working for Elvis, which is the biggest superstar arguably in the world besides maybe Michael Jackson or, you know, whatever. But it's like he worked, and so he ended up working with Elvis, and then there was like this other thing where he's like he was doing this show with somebody else, and they're like, you need to sell this room out and and then what he ended up doing is he ended up going to the prison because they couldn't sell the room out, and he convinced the warden over there to send over. It was like this crazy, I don't know, I'll butcher the story, but it's just like those things I really really like, where it's like you figure out a way, but it's also like there's a fine line of working really hard. Luck, I think, has a lot to do with it. And it's like, you know, luck is, you know, you could look at it as like, there's no such thing as luck. There's no such thing as coincidence or whatever. But like, that's how I would look at it, is like, what are the odds of a human being being in the same city and then another human being being in the same city? And then all of a sudden you cross paths and you recognize each other. I did this one time. I was walking down in New York with my dog. I was outside. I was doing TV, and the night before I brought my dog out to go potty. And I'm walking. You know, you've been to New York City. It's very busy. Anybody who's been to a big city, it's just very busy. There's a lot going on. There's people hooting and hollering and cars beeping, and it was at night. And I just remember I'm walking, and all of a sudden I go, right there was Will Smith. And I go, why did my mind just turn and know that Will Smith was right there? It was so bizarre. I'm like, it's like this law of attraction where it's like, you know, obviously if like, I don't know, Will Smith's a legend, right? Like,
Of course, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like Fresh Prince and shit. Like, I just was walking out of all the chaos in New York City,
And you're just
and all of a sudden there was just something in my head that just went shoop. And then Will Smith's just standing there like drunk with his family. There's this whole family outside having a good time. And I was like, it's just crazy like how like the universe
how it all works. Yeah.
works like that.
There's a saying like in entrepreneurship is like you just got to stay on top of the wave long enough to get lucky.
That's
And
right.
I've been trying to be a successful entrepreneur for the better part of 15 years. So but I've stayed with it, you know, and who knows what will happen with Perpetual, but like just got to keep riding the wave, and eventually, you know, they're going to call you up.
Hell yeah, man. There's a lot of young and new dog trainers who are entrepreneur who follow this podcast and listen to this podcast. What advice can you give them as an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say learn to love the process, celebrate the small wins, and momentum is everything. And whatever you got to do day in and day out, get those small wins so you keep the momentum, and have a clear vision, and just keep going for it, and never give up. If it's something you truly believe in and it's like this is your life's work, put everything you have into it. You'll have no regrets.
Love that. John, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you just tell people where they can find your company and the exact launch date, so people who are listening to this in the future know that it is launched, and people who are listening to this before that, and the websites and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the website is www.theperpetualpet.com. All of our social medias is at Perpetual Pet. My personal social media is at John Crissy. And then we're launching at the end of this month. We don't have a hard launch date, but it's going to be sometime at the end of June, early July.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching here on YouTube, on Spotify, and listening however you guys get your podcast. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.